Everyone, this is the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my sidekick, Austin. And apologies for the late start tonight. We were having some connection issues, but I think we're good now. And we'll try not to do too much preamble this time because this is a longer movie and we're starting so late. But Austin, thanks.
You've already ruined it. Now we're gonna have a lot of preamble just because you said it.
No, I'm looking at this clock. We're not gonna do it. There's a part of me that wants to just skip all the way to, look, if you want to watch it on DVD, Blu-ray, however you want to watch it, get it timestamp 0, and here we go. But no, I'll do, a little bit. Anyway, so Captain America Civil War is the movie for this evening, and this is a film that people have been begging us to do lately, and I've been waiting for me to do some kind of a rewind on forever. I did a commentary on this back during Marvel Mania years ago. This one we actually prepared for, so it will be different from that commentary, and will also be really interesting, Austin, looking at this after all of the MCU that comes after it. I had a bit of a different experience this time. Especially after some recent films, and going back, and not to get too ahead of myself, but going back and looking at the Civil War comic again, not remembering how much the Thunderbolts were involved with that book. This whole thing just feels a little different after so much history and continuity now.
Mm-hmm. No, and this sets me right back in a particular time and place. This is the second MCU film after I finished high school. I'm just beginning my first full-time job. This is the first MCU film for a stretch that I see 4 times in the theater, which was kind of the beginning of me doing that. I'd never really seen a movie more than once in the theater, with a few exceptions, up until right around that point when I had my own money to do that and could drive.
Yeah, that's crazy. And we're always comparing each other's ages. At that point, I'd been doing the channel for 7 or 8 years, and this is already a couple of years after Days of Future Past. It's just and Winter Soldier. It's crazy to think this.
Everyone's asking you questions because you saw it early.
Yes, I saw it early. I was gonna say this was a special movie for me for 2 big reasons. A, it was the other Versus film that year, and it was the good one. And B, and I can't remember, was this before or after BVS? I want to say it was before.
No, that's March. This is May.
Okay. Oh, you're right. It was March. I meant to go back and look at that again. And again, it's been almost a decade. Because we're doing this on the grand 9th anniversary of Captain America Civil War.
So close to a big one.
Yeah, I've been lining a lot of these up for the anniversaries, and this was one that when we announced we were doing kind of a bigger movie, a couple of shows ago. And by the way, we're like a month late on this one, so apologies for the delay on the commentary project. We're back. We'll be doing one next week again as well. But and it's Batman, so we're gonna do Batman movies after this one. We'll do at least 2 Batman movies this month, and so I will reveal what that will be at the end of the show. But I can't tell you it's a Batman movie. But anyway, it's a thing that people thought we were gonna do a couple of shows ago when I said we're doing a big movie, everybody. Oh my God, finally Civil War! So I thought this time we'd actually give that to everybody, and we're doing it on the grand 9th anniversary, and we're doing it on our big 41st episode of the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project.
Also so close to a big number, but
yeah, well, that one
oh wow,
is in a weird way your fault. Actually, this could have come up on the wheel spin for that.
They could have, yeah.
Because I think this was in our top 2. I think this is probably both of our top 10s.
I think so.
I would have.
I don't think it's not in my top 10, but I think we did 15s, and it might be in my 15.
So it would have been on both of ours. Yeah, I don't remember what exactly the lists were, but yeah, for our 40th show, we did a wheel spin with movies in my and Austin's top 15 movies, and the only one that was really obscure was the one that ended up coming up, and we ended up doing Dr. Mordred for our 40th show. That was the last one. It's got a whopping like 350 views, because who cares about that? So our big exciting whopping 41st show, it's Captain America Civil War. Austin, what edition do you own of this if you have it in physical?
I do not own this movie because this was a Phase 3 movie, and I owned all of them up to a point, and then sold them to my mom so I could buy the big Phase 3 set because I owned the first 2, and then they never made one, so now I don't own any movie past Ant-Man.
And I'm sorry, you told that story before, but I momentarily forgot about that. I picked mine up, and I was like, oh, I bet Austin's got this on. I'll stop.
That was the one that I had.
I'll stop.
That was the one I had.
Okay. So yeah, this is the collector's edition. I don't think they ever call these that with MCU now. I don't know that you ever see that.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure all like physical media for new movies just say please buy. If you buy one and one will not end up in a landfill is what every sticker on a new movie says.
Yeah, this was a Target exclusive, and
okay, so it's not the exact one that I had then.
I mean, I say that like I'm looking at a sticker that says only at Target because it just had like apparently exclusive digital content, but the box and everything is exactly the same. Like this was just a standard release, I think. I bought a lot of Target exclusives that were like deluxe editions that would come with like booklets and cards and things while they still did that, and I missed those releases. They had some really cool ones, and now Target just doesn't do physical media at all anymore, and so they've got all this extra space now in their electronic sections. It's really embarrassing. Like you go there, they're so spread out because they have nothing to sell anymore, and it's sad.
Well, we had Target for half a minute, and I made my dad drive out to Target, which was farther than Walmart, so that I could buy Amazing Spider-Man 2 with the Target exclusive stuff. Only to find out that I guess that was only in the States.
Oh,
and there was nothing on my copy, but. Not only that, but they didn't even take it out of the case, and I didn't realize that until I walked out. Like I was just so not thinking about it. So then I got home and it was like, oh, how do I even get this movie out?
Okay, I promise not a long preamble, so we'll get right into it. We've got 2.5 hours to talk about this. I guess 2 hours and 20 minutes. This movie is actually a little bit shorter than I remembered it. I honestly,
oh, really?
as long as it is, when you think about how many characters they're stuffing in here, and subplots, and just how meaty this movie is, and how heavy the ideas are, it's kind of crazy that it's only 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like I feel like if this was made now, it'd be like 2:45, no matter who made it. Like.
No, and I do think you could cut this movie down. Like it is a little self-indulgent, but not in a way that I think like hampers the movie enough for me.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll talk about that because the quote unquote self-indulgent stuff I also feel like is kind of necessary. Some of it so the movie isn't too bogged down with with like heavy oppressive stuff. Like I think you need the levity.
A lot of the self-indulgence is just kind of fun, so like I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are just willing to give it a pass. Yeah.
But anyway,
It's not like Endgame where I'm like, please cut this down.
well, it doesn't come to a slog or anything. I feel like it's always still kind of moving. And different people have different opinions about the airport fight. We'll talk about that. That's probably more of what you're talking about than anything.
I'm more so talking about we all love Spider-Man. I think he's great in this movie. The movie does come to a screeching halt in order to introduce him.
Yeah.
But like I like his scene. Like it's fine.
But I'm
I
not
don't
sure
care enough. But
how else you do it. And so yeah, we'll have to.
you would
talk
just
about
have to
it.
cut him out. Yeah.
Yeah. If he's going to be there, I feel like he's the one character that actually does require a proper introduction. Because Black Panther's just dropped in and it totally works.
Yeah, and I mean the nice thing is that Peter does kind of sum up a lot of what the movie's about thematically. So like you do have that, but that scene is still like really long to just kind of screech to a halt for.
Yeah. Yeah, it does sort of feel like we're doing that to set another movie up.
And I know Downey like fought for it because the Russos they like got to film it and they were like, no, we're gonna cut this down, and we're not even gonna film the whole scene. And Downey was like, no, let's film the whole scene, make that decision later. So, like it's cool that it even exists.
Yeah, I think you get some very different complaints with people forever with this movie if you didn't have that. So like I think if you're gonna have him, that's probably the way to do it. But anyway, so we talked about that already. Everybody,
Now there's no reason to talk about the movie. Good night,
now we're
everybody.
good. Everybody, get your movie to timestamp 0, whether you're watching it on DVD, Blu-ray, or Disney Plus. Digital rental, however you're watching it. And I don't think that with anywhere there's any weird logos at the beginning or anything, so just timestamp 0. And I will set my audio so that I don't get copyright flagged. And I'll get to the super chat right at the start from Dan Schneider. And as always, if you'd like to make sure that anything about the movie is talked about, you can leave a super chat any dollar amount. We will guarantee that we talk about your topic, and I'll be monitoring the comments, and we'll try to interact with you as much as we can. If you're watching live, thanks a ton for being here, and we appreciate you watching after the fact as well. We'll do tweet-linked reviews at the end, and if you haven't gotten one in yet, you still got a little bit of time. We can always refresh and look at new ones. $5 tier on Patreon makes that possible. Just a quick plug for that, patreon.com/geekvolution, and $10 tier for Rewind producers. Here we go, everybody. Please press play. There's just too much to remember when I'm setting this up, Austin. It's like there's no way to not have a 12-minute preamble, especially if you want to just start analyzing the Spider-Man scene.
That's what I said. You just can never acknowledge it. Once it's acknowledged, it's an unspoken thing. It's going to be a long preamble.
I guess I just need to learn to exercise self-control and to not let you jinx me. Okay, everybody, please, good lord, I can't even talk now. Everybody, please press play right. This is going to be great. Right now.
I like the choice with this movie just right off the bat that it's got like a cold open before the logos.
Yeah, and that was so unusual that I remember being in the theater and being really surprised by it, because with that early screening we went to, or maybe no, I think it was that first screening I went to. They accidentally started the movie like 30 seconds or a minute in.
Oh, weird.
I'm suddenly remembering that, and
yeah,
and so I thought it was a mistake. I thought the whole thing was a mistake. Like we missed the Marvel opening. So I was really surprised when we actually got the logo, because I was like, oh, okay, so it was a mistake, but it wasn't as much of a mistake.
That is bizarre. I mean, I guess there's like a place where you could open this, like where it's just him on the mission and you wouldn't even notice, but that's really funny.
So if you didn't see the after credits scene from the previous movie, you might be a little bit surprised opening this with Bucky like this. and I like just forgetting like advertising and after credits and all of that. I like the Russos getting right up front with this and saying no, this is a direct sequel to Winter Soldier, and Bucky matters in this, and he's gonna be obviously a major linchpin for this story. And then everything else you're seeing here, you'll be surprised later, you know, with how tightly woven this is, how much it's all going to matter. With the notebook and with who exactly it turns out he's killing at the start and all of that, because this is actually setting up the twist for the end, and that's not always a given with stuff like this. This could have just as easily been a generic setup just to remind you that you know Bucky is the Winter Soldier and he's being controlled by people, and that's still like he's still at it in 1991, and that's like all it's giving us.
But I actually think it's doing a really good job of setting it up in a way that you're also thinking, oh, there's going to be some sort of MacGuffin, because we're going to get him opening the truck,
That's right.
and that's when he pulls out the super serum thing. When really that's not actually what we're setting up. Like, that is the red herring.
So there are a couple of massive fake outs like that in this movie. One's right at the start, and one's at the beginning of the third act, when it tries to make you think that the whole thing is going to be a showdown with the other 5 super soldiers that you'll find out are dead. And there's this really cool choice. The Russos talk about this in their commentary. There's this really cool choice to have. Sorry, I just got to stop and say I miss the old logo.
Yeah.
And
every time I go back to this, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one before we changed the logo. That's right.
Yeah, and it's just cool to see comic panels again. And then you and I both got really excited with Thunderbolts that they brought that back for the first time in a million years. It was great. It's really cool watching this right after Thunderbolts, because Thunderbolts took me back to this period.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, also with the third act, with what you were saying, that I know that was also a huge fight behind the scenes with the Russos and Feige trying to get it so that would be the climax.
Yep.
While the like infamous creative committee were like, no, this movie like has to end with them fighting a bunch of super soldiers, otherwise it'll be boring.
Yeah, the executives at Marvel Entertainment wanted this to end with a real typical, you know, the heroes save the day. They can have their civil war, but then they have to all come together to fight a threat at the end. And not only did and to Feige's credit, like he fought for this, like you said, and not only did they win on that, but it changed the oversight for the rest of history, apparently, from Marvel Entertainment to Disney.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know another big thing too was that Marvel Entertainment like didn't want to have to pay Downey for this, where they were like, no, do something else.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I think all that stuff is in that was like Reign of the MCU or Marvel Studios, whatever that book is.
I've been thinking about finally reading that and doing some kind of a discussion on it on the channel. I should have done that when it came out. I just didn't get around to it, but better late than never. We should try to do that. But anyway, what I was going to say, this is going to be this whole commentary, I think. Just 5 things come to me, and I got to pick one. But I started to say earlier, something I had not picked up on until the Russos brought it up in their commentary, is they explicitly asked Henry Jackman with the score to have the music while the plane is descending in the third act, where you're going to have the big showdown with Iron Man and Captain America, to be the biggest, most bombastic, like stereotypical, triumphant superhero stuff in order to be part of the red herring to make you think that that's what's about to happen. And I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So this opening is probably like the most like out of Winter Soldier that this movie kind of gets,
and especially in the soundtrack. Speaking of that,
yeah, absolutely. I do like this opening. I do think that there are things that are maybe like a little clunky.
Like what?
I don't know. I feel like as much as I don't think the comic works that well, I do think it has an easier setup of um, like a new hero comes in and completely bungle something that could have been completely avoided, while this is much more one that just makes like a mistake like in the middle of something that's already ongoing. I do think it's like a little clunkier of a setup for Civil War.
So is the clunky part of it kind of a why now question? Where it's like, why is this exactly the straw that breaks the camel's back when you have the several other examples that Thunderbolt Ross will bring up of times where there were collateral damage because of things the Avengers did, and now there's one more, and by the way, it's smaller than all the other ones that he talks about, and that's the one. Like, is that what you're getting at?
I mean, yeah, like there is an element of that, and I do like how that's how we get Wakanda, and they're kind of the ones spearheading this idea.
Yeah, at least somebody's complaining on the outside about it, and then simultaneously you have Alfred Woodard coming to Tony Stark. I don't think that by itself would have been enough. Like I don't think you want like. I buy well enough Tony being on the side he is in on this, but I don't think I would necessarily buy him coming up with the whole idea. I think it does have to be brought to him, but having somebody else kind of remind him of like how dangerous they've been in the past and making it personal, I think you do have to have that.
Yeah, but basically, like what I mean by like it's a little clunkier than it is in the comic is just in the comic it's something that could have been fully avoided and is entirely the hero's fault. While here, it is just kind of a mistake during like an actual crisis scenario, and Ultron being a Tony Stark thing maybe works a little bit better because that's actually something that he fully sparked. But then I don't MCU with Ultron and like how all of that works. I think is just a little confusing. Like I guess just nobody knows anything about that.
Yeah, that was always my biggest complaint about the end of that movie is I couldn't figure out how Tony wasn't on the run or in prison. Like I've never understood that.
No, and I mean the sequence is fun. It also is a little bit of a shame that we kind of just threw away Crossbones like this. It is that MCU thing of just we set up something, we don't actually want to do anything with it though.
I do think if the third Captain America movie had been anything but this, he probably would have had a larger part and wouldn't have been thrown away in the first act. Like there are some compromises they're making in order to make this a bigger event movie on top of a sequel to Winter Soldier, and it's all juggled extremely well. For his,
absolutely, and I'm glad he at least came back.
Yeah, for as compromised as some of the Captain America side has been. No, you're right, because you absolutely could have just shafted him entirely, left that loose.
He could have gotten the Scorpion treatment.
Now, I will say that the thing I do like about this, at least for this material over the Stamford incident in Civil War, is just that it is something that one of our heroes does that spearheads the whole thing. I don't think you could introduce a new hero and have it be like it could have been a more avoidable thing like you're talking about maybe, but I do think if you're going to get rid of the secret identity crisis of it, you probably have to do it this way and make it just about our guys. And because that's about should we be allowing vigilantes, and this is about should we be allowing the Avengers. Like it's about specifically this team before it's about people in costumes. So it is different.
No, and I mean that's something that we should like get out like at front is that this movie isn't really about that. Like it is much more about the intimate like personal squabble between Cap and Iron Man, and that's just kind of the thing that spearheads and expands it.
Yeah. And the politics are there, but it's not at the forefront, and that's very, very smart. For lots of reasons, and I think the Russos are spot on when they say that one of the reasons they wanted to do it that way was so that it wasn't just scene after scene of our heroes having the same philosophical debate over and over again, and it makes it easier for each character to have different motivations behind what side they get on, as opposed to the comic, which is pretty much just what in these characters' backgrounds and with their worldview tells you whether they think superheroes should have to give up their secret identities. Like, that's really what that's about. And this is more about the argument that Winter Soldier was developing, starting in Avengers, but then taking hold totally in that movie, where it's all about sorry, he's about to explode. Where it's about freedom versus security.
Yeah, exactly. We also you were gonna bring up that super chat, and
I was. Thanks for reminding me. So yeah, Dan Shiner, $2 super chat. Civil War was meant for the Ultimate Universe. It's really funny that he said that, because I had that thought all the way rereading it today. Where I still, and I think I've had that every time I've looked at that book, but I forgot about it. Because of course that's Mark Millar, and he's writing it not too far after Ultimates, and it's probably like a year or two after Ultimates too.
Yeah, I think around there. I can't remember the exact dates, but it is probably around there.
That whole concept and the way those characters are acting, and how much of a massive change it is to that universe, it all feels like it ought to be in Ultimate instead of 616. Because Ultimate deconstructs the superhero stuff so much more, and like it kind of reads like maybe it's what an Ultimates 3 should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it works a little bit better here, is that like one of the issues I think with Civil War from the comic perspective is we're so deep into a Marvel universe that there absolutely is a why now question.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it needs to be a newer idea. The Avengers haven't been around for too long, and the idea of just people in costumes fighting crime has not been around for too long.
Yeah, exactly. We're only 8 years after Iron Man at this point.
And Millar in the comics makes the mistake of, if it is a mistake, bringing bringing that idea in neon lights, when real early he has someone say there have been costumed crime fighters going all the way back for decades. I'm like, I don't know if I'd put a spotlight on that, but okay.
Absolutely.
The woman playing Tony's mom here is an actress that I had never seen in anything until just recently. She's a main character in the TV show Your Honor with Bryan Cranston, which I liked in the first season until I didn't, and then the second season is not good, and I quit watching it like halfway through. She's really good in it, but I guess this is just this actress. She's just always got this like perpetual disgusted face. Just always.
She's just always like annoyed at you. She's got that mom energy. She's not angry. She's just disappointed.
Yeah, but like mob boss mom energy, which is what she is in that show.
No, and young Tony, the CGI in him is very strange.
Is it the creepiest that's ever been? Maybe at this point
no,
it's not, but I think it might have been at that point.
I don't know if it even was at that point, but it's definitely off-putting, and I don't like it.
So I'm gonna say it is because of how long it's in my face in soft focus. Like, I keep having to look at it. I would have almost gone all the way to just have every character in that scene look like that. Because, and I mean, it would have kind of tipped you off that they're holograms. But the thing that makes me almost okay with it is the fact that it's not real. But then I'm like, okay, but the parents look real, so it still doesn't work. Like,
but I don't think that they think the Tron Legacy problem. Work.
Say again.
They're looking at. I don't think that they're looking at it like it doesn't work. They're looking at it like, oh man, can you believe how good this technology is? Like we're putting him right in front of your face.
And the Russos talk about it like that in their commentary, and I'm like, guys, I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, look,
absolutely.
Look how amazing this is, and I'm like, I mean, I'm looking. It's not even Uncanny Valley. It's just Valley. Like,
It's just in the desert. No, it's very off-putting and creepy. I still remember seeing that on the big screen for the first time. Like, whoa, what are we doing?
well, and I think in a way it's supposed to be off-putting, but not exactly in the way it is, because you don't realize that you're looking at a stage, and that's the way in which the filming of that is supposed to seem odd and off, because it's not actually a flashback. I But
Yeah.
and because of that, in the theater, I was looking at that and going like, something's really off about this, and I don't know why. I thought there was like some intentional reason that he looked so strange,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
of the limitations of that technology. Teddy put in a $20 super chat. Let me go ahead and read this real quick. Thanks so much for the support, man. He says, "I like this movie because it has that scene where Tony looks like a father dealing with a bunch of loud kids being
It looks
over
like
it."
a father.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's what he meant, but what he wrote was lime.
He puts the lime in the coconut and mixes it all up.
He
And
looks
Bucky
like a
doesn't like
father
that.
dealing with a bunch of loud kids being over it.
I think he's talking about that scene in the Avengers compound where he like scolds them for putting coffee grounds in the disposal. Maybe he's very much the angry dad in that scene.
I guess so. I'm glad you're here. I had no idea what he was talking about.
I guess I don't know. Okay, things to get out. So we
Yeah.
just had the dean from Community, but also I really like that we're already setting up that Tony's already in like a really fragile place too. I think that's one of the big things that really helps their divide is that you have Tony, already in a rough place, and then Cap's about to be going into one.
And he's in a rough
And it's also
place
helpful
for...
that they're not both at the same time. Like it's that the last two Batman things, right, where it's like one villain's already set up while you're introducing a villain. You kind of have that with their being like their emotional states.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I mean, Captain America's not in the best place he's ever been either. With trying to find Bucky and with the Hydra reveal at the end of the last movie. I think this is supposed to be only a year after Ultron, and so it hasn't been too long since that. Also,
Yeah, I mean, Ultron's like the awkward part in it, where it doesn't really build. Like, it's not enough of like a cohesive
no, that's true.
middle between the two. But
yeah, with Tony, he's
sure. I mean, you can look at it that way.
With Tony, he's in a bad place because, well, I say that because of the political situation, right? Like Steve, responds to this somewhat differently. Like, he would never like the idea of the Accords, but he's way more suspicious of it in my mind because of the Hydra reveal. This is a guy who we've seen repeatedly have new reasons to not trust authority.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I don't think he would before that, but that's definitely part of it.
Well, I just said that. Like, no, he wouldn't. But I think that he has an even stronger reaction, and he's even more suspicious of it here. And it's just interesting seeing Tony and Steve remaining the same people they've always been, but winding up really logically on the exact opposite sides as they once were, where Captain America used to obviously work for the government and be in that chain of command, and Tony privatized world peace. And now he's full on the side of the government, and yet it's not because they've flipped worldviews or ideologies. They have naturally wound up in those places, and it's because Tony is the character that keeps changing massively over time, and Captain America refuses to change.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I said this to you off camera, but I think my biggest issue with Cap's worldview with this beginning stuff, and it helps that we're not really going to get into like the politics of this that much. But I do think it hurts that there's not even a line about the League of Nations when they're going to be working for the UN, and Cap is from that period. Like, I do think that is a big kind of misstep in not mentioning that.
Yeah, and I also think
it's everything that he's saying.
Yeah, you're right, and he should also bring up the Hydra thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a little strange that doesn't come up. And I just mean in the more like theoretical argument of here's another really good reason not to just let the government point us wherever they want to and shoot, because we can't trust who's behind it. Because there's that line that Tony or somebody has here where they say like it's not the World Security Council, like it's not the same thing as that. It's like, yeah, but you can't ever be totally sure if you can trust the people in authority, like that will sometimes change. And so you're going to sign this legislation that's going to be put into law that's going to be effective no matter who is in charge. And we don't get, and I appreciate this, but like we don't get at all into like liberal, conservative, right wing, left wing, like who exactly is in the White House right now, but like who your like who is in the White House would matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's why you need the League of Nations mentioned, because World War II sparks because they're like inactivity to like step in and do things, which is exactly what Cap's talking about. Like, I feel like it's something that he should be saying because A, he's from that time and fought in that war, and B, it's already what his argument is. Like, it should be the thing that he points to and says, like, look, like there is a proven example for why we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, and the thing he just dealt with was all about like massive levels of control over people.
Mm-hmm.
And so
exactly.
It's not just an ideological argument. There's like tangible evidence this is a bad idea. But there's also a decent amount of evidence in the other side. Like it's like I won't mince words. I always fall more on the Captain America side of this argument. But I think the movie does a good job of giving as equal weight to both sides as it can. I mean, the way the Russos talk about it is like when you get to the end of the movie, they're hoping that you'll have arguments with your friends about which side is correct. And I feel like as far as and apparently like they did a test screening real late before the movie came out where they polled 30 people and it was a 15-15 split. As to like who is right about the ideological argument, which is why I appreciate that it doesn't just come down to that, and it's also about a personal betrayal, and with the Bucky of it all, Cleveland, with the Bucky of it all, and with Captain America making the this is so interesting to me, Austin, after Winter Soldier, making the mistake of not telling Tony about his parents' murder and doing the exact compartmentalization thing that he hated Nick Fury for previously.
Yeah, this is another thing I mentioned to you off camera. I think part of that too, in adapting this, is their Iron Man is so like punk rock fueled, like from the beginning of the MCU. So he's not even like fully registration in the way that he is in the comics. Like his perspective is just, let's do this now and then we'll work on it.
Yes.
As opposed to being pro registration. And I think
which is that is like a major difference. Believable and in character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But I just think that's like really interesting in that they kind of have their cake and eat it with Tony, where like he is the government view, but we're also trying to have that punk rock mentality still in that. And the comic has this with Maria Hill. Like Ross kind of takes that place where she's like very evil in the book, and then he's like the more hardcore pro registration place here. But like we will have Tony basically like mocking him throughout this whole movie, despite also being on his side. Um, at least theoretically. I just think that's really interesting the way they kind of ride that line.
And he's only on his side because he thinks that compromise is necessary and because he's always overcompensating for his own mistakes. And that's really consistent with what we've done with him all the way through. I like that the Ultron of it is really obvious without there having to really talk too much about that. I know you don't care for that movie, and I have my issues with it, but I really like this right after that, where Tony has is like doing this complete 180, where in that it's all about the putting a shield around the world and taking it upon himself to basically like be police the world and be the savior of everything. And now it's, oh God, I really messed up, and so I've got to do the exact opposite of that.
Mm-hmm. No, and I would definitely appreciate that more if he was like fully hands-on in creating Ultron as opposed to like how it's handled in that movie. Zemo, I think, is like one of their best casting choices in the MCU. I was very excited when they cast him. I know him from Inglourious Bastards. He's a great actor, and I think he does a great job in this movie. And I think the Zemo take is really interesting because comic Zemo, the whole thing with him is that he's basically Cap on the wrong side, but he's also just a guy, and like that's part of what's like threatening about him is that he's able to command like all these people while just being a guy. And I think this movie kind of takes that aspect and runs with it while kind of dumping the rest of that stuff. Like this Zemo could never have a Masters of Evil, and I kind of talked about this in the Thunderbolts review that we just did, where it's like they have such a specific take on Zemo now that it's hard to do some of the other stuff that you can do with that character now because of the choices in this movie. But I also think it really works for this movie.
Yeah, that's what I like about him, is how everyman he is. I've never fully appreciated, and I mean this is just me. It's like what resonates with you and what doesn't. I think he's really serviceable with this movie. I kind of like how little screen time he is and how well I understand him as a character. I don't really understand the fascination a lot of fans have with him. Just like how much he resonates with people, and like he's in like top tier Marvel villain for a lot of people, and like he's interesting enough, but I don't get like the.
I think so much of that is performance, though.
Maybe I've heard people talk about him like he's got this really fascinating like deep philosophy or something, and I'm like, he's got a real creative way to get revenge, but I don't know what's. I don't know what's deep about his worldview, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the... Well, I think it's interesting, especially for people that are already fans of the character, like, and how they adapted it.
Maybe so, and to be fair, that's not a character I knew anything about before this.
Oh, okay, and I love Zemo. He's one of my favorite comic villains. No, like John Kelling just said, he's like the anti-supremacist. Like, he's almost, in a lot of ways, like... kind of a reverse of what he is in the comics, while also having that like everyman. Not, I mean, here it's more like everyman, while in the comics, he just is a guy.
Okay, great. Put in a $2 super chat and says 2016, the year of superhero mothers. And I think everybody's got typos tonight. I think he meant Save Martha, but he wrote Save Maria, so that's odd. But. Yeah,
well, no, because that's Tony's mom's name.
Oh, is that why you said that? Okay, sorry, I understand now.
Yeah, it's okay.
I forgot that was her name.
I feel like it comes up maybe once. That is a weird thing with this movie is he's never once mentioned his mom. I think that works here, but it is a little funny. Like it's the only time it's ever come up.
Yeah, he might as well have been raised by a single parent before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even know he had a mom until this movie set that up.
Well, maybe he never talks about her because their death was so traumatic that like he can't get around talking about his dad because his dad was famous.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Well,
easy
I think
to just
part of it too
that and
is
never bring up his mother. Like I guess that's possible.
It's also harder because you also get the sense that he had a good relationship with his mom and he never really did with his dad. So like his mom is cut short out of his life while his dad, he's always like striving to like have that completion or that like the resolution with his dad that he never got. So like that also makes sense to that degree.
Although maybe the thing I just said doesn't make sense because he did create holograms of his parents and put them in front of all of MIT.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe I'm wrong there. Whenever the funeral for Peggy Carter comes up here, which is kind of fun because we're like right in the middle of her TV show right now, and she's not actually going to be in this, but then you can go watch her on TV. I always want the choir at the start of this funeral to be singing, "You can't always get what you want."
But if you try sometimes, you can bang your old girlfriend's niece.
Oh my god!
I guess would be the. That's what this movie does. It's very weird.
It's very weird. And
but it's also weird because we completely dropped that chord after this.
So in their that's what makes it even weirder. Like if they went somewhere
cut
with
all
it,
of their stuff from Endgame, yeah.
If they just went somewhere with it and then discussed it, they could have won me over, I guess, as much as they could possibly win me over on it. Although, if he actually went further with his relationship with her and then goes back in time and has a whole life with Peggy, it's way weirder. So it's probably for the best that didn't happen.
But it's also cool if he went back in time and was like, by the way, I kissed your niece in the future.
I kissed your niece and I liked it.
And I didn't. That's why I'm back.
Apparently, she's supposed to be Peggy Carter's great niece, which makes a lot more sense. But it's never really stated, or if it is, it's like one time.
I think she does say like great Aunt Peggy. I just always say niece because it's easier to say. No, I do think she does mention that.
But that was a question a lot of people had with this. Is like, how is it possible that that's her aunt? It's not an aunt; it's a great aunt. But anyway.
And I do think Sharon's maybe a little tacked onto this movie. Like, I would maybe cut her to give more screen time to other characters.
Yeah, I know some people really hate this funeral scene because of that. And
I don't have that. Like, I think the scene's fine.
I do think it's a little tacked on. Well, and actually, I think more of it with the funeral scene is just how blatant the subtext is in her eulogy. In looking at Steve and making that whole eulogy just about what he should do with the ideological question with the Accords, and yeah, I guess I kind of get why people were sort of annoyed by that, but
at least it's not giving a speech at your school being like, "Hello, my name is Gwen Stacy, and I am totally gonna die at the end of this."
I knew you were gonna bring that up. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is people complaining about that does remind me of that whole thing a little bit. This is not in that league. This is better than that, and also I can see the argument for it, where it's like, this sad funeral for a person we both cared about. I'm gonna use to help you in this really important choice you're gonna make that Peggy would have had probably the same opinion about. So I could see that.
Yeah, that's kind of always how I've seen it. It's just, their kind of connection, and like that is just a thing that she has and that he has, and that it's almost like a reminder of that. But in celebrating her,
I'm extremely impressed, and always have been, with how well T'Challa is integrated in the story, just from front to back. It's cool
his
that
first scene sets him and T'Chaka up so perfectly. Like I feel like it's such an easy place where you can totally botch this. Where like you don't really care about T'Chaka. Like we just introduced him. This is his first scene, and he's about to die. He was like on the news in an earlier scene.
Yep. That's how
But
the idea of
you
Wakanda
like,
is even introduced, is just on a TV.
but like you instantly get their relationship so quickly in like maybe 4 lines of dialogue.
They
And
both have so much presence right away,
yeah,
and
exactly. It's one of the best introductions in the MCU, I think.
it's because it's so subtle. It's because they don't feel like they have to try to give you all this backstory right away. Uh, if you don't know anything about comics, there's so much about Wakanda you don't immediately know that you don't need yet, and it's really cool that that's just all gradually introduced. Like all we really know at the start is they're of some small African nation that nobody knows anything about, and they're real isolated, and they're they're coming out and unusually talking to other nations because of what happened at the start of this movie. But you don't know
Hmm.
much. And like vibranium has been brought up now, but we don't
Yeah.
we don't know much else besides that. But like they
No, and
both
I
just
think it helps for those people that you're learning about that stuff with the characters that are dealing with T'Challa. I think that really works for this movie. And I mean, comic history wise, like it is just cool. You know, he's introduced in FF first. Like it is cool. We kind of have a parallel to that.
and that we're doing that kind of comic storytelling.
And I know it. Like in some of the scripts, he was just T'Challa and he was not Black Panther through
Right.
this movie. So I'm glad that it worked out the way it did because it's like the perfect thing to do with his character.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I think I appreciate introducing two costumed heroes in this the way they do instead of just one. I feel like Spider-Man would look even more tacked on if T'Challa didn't suit up.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's very true.
And of course, Spider-Man is introduced in a different way where we do have to stop everything, like you were talking about at the beginning. I guess we don't even need to have this conversation. We did this already. Uh, but you do have to kind of stop everything and get a little bit into who he is and what he's all about, even though we've had movies about that character before. But I think that's more about like helping the fan base to ease into a new version of it. I
Mhm.
there's so much more baggage with that that I think you have to like reassure the audience, and that's why they're doing that.
When they're doing the Quicksilver and Days of Future Past thing with him, right? Where we're gonna get him for like 2, 3 scenes, and he's going to be a highlight, but he's not really like an important part of the movie.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison.
Mhm. It is kind of funny. I didn't have this thought until you just mentioned both of them side by side. That Iron Man's side gets both of the new introduced characters. That is kind of amusing.
Which makes their argument look weaker, because it's like
Mhm.
one of the members of their side is a 15-year-old kid that wouldn't I understand
But
or
he has no
care
idea what's happening.
at all about the political ramifications, and then uh, another one that has a stake in the politics of it at the beginning, but it becomes much more about uh, his father's death and seeking revenge for that. So at least two members of that team aren't really there for the accords of it all. And then you have Black Widow that kind of plays both sides. So now half that team is like that.
But at the same time, with Black Panther, like yes, he is like full revenge motivation. Uh, he and his father, as you know, politicians. I know they're a royal family, so I don't know if you can call them politicians, but
World leaders, yeah.
world leaders of a foreign nation that are like, hey, we need to do this, and the king of Wakanda is killed by one of the loose ends under Captain America.
Yeah.
So like you do kind of have an element of that even there,
Yeah, that's a
of
good
just the
point.
mistakes of their past.
So there's a part of me that kind of wishes uh, the Black Panther movie was further in development when this movie comes out, so that we could get a little bit of the hero theme for him in this. It's a little odd not to have like any of the like African inspired music from that movie around him. So his post that movie, the score here when he's there seems kind of generic to me, because I associate him with a particular sound now. So I didn't have this when it came out, but retroactively, I kind of wish it was there.
No, I mean, that's fair. And I mean, at least for me, like I think Black Panther is going to be very different moving forward. Like when we get to his movie.
I think it's also cool that we got a movie with both Captain America and Iron Man, and where they're on opposite sides and fighting each other, so that we can do something with both of their sidekicks. I just think it's
sorry.
fun.
That what?
I just think it's fun to have a movie that isn't just a straight up Avengers movie that actually utilizes both of their sidekicks.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I mean that's fun. I do like that. Obviously, of the Avengers, they get like a little bit more to do, and there's more ramifications for both of their sidekicks, like you're saying. Like that is really cool.
And Falcon has an oddly large role in the book.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to reread it. I couldn't remember. I remember him being there, but I don't remember like what his role is.
Yeah, he has a fair amount to do in that. And I also forgot how linked Iron Man and Spider-Man are in that. And it's very different from this, but you can tell that's a big inspiration on why Iron Man is the way we're bringing Spider-Man into this.
And then it's funny, too, because then Black Widow kind of steals his part in the book of being the one on Iron Man's team that then betrays them.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I was going to say, and then goes to Cap's team, but we're done with the team thing by that point.
Yeah, we just dropped that at that point.
Yeah, which I think is the right choice for this movie.
Yeah, because then it just comes down to Iron Man and Captain America, and once they've figured out Zemo and where he is and all of that, they're not really concerned so much about the Accords at that point.
Yeah, because like we said, this is much more about the emotional state of Tony and Steve. So that's kind of the moment at the end of that fight is where, okay, the Sokovia Accords thing is going to kind of backseat now, and now we're like fully going to go in on that, and I think that's just the correct choice.
But importantly, it does still more or less end like the book does, where Tony's side kind of wins in that the legislation does go through. I don't like... I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about the book. I don't like the way Civil War ends, feeling like the book thinks it's a happier ending than I do. That always bothers me, because Tony's basically like, "Yay, we won! The good guys won out, and this is law now, and this is the way it should be." And I cannot decide if that's what the book thinks, but like it kind of reads that way, and it's weird.
Especially because like Iron Man is like the villain of the Marvel universe, like, and how they portray him for the longest time around Civil War and after. So it's like they're definitely not on his side.
Yeah, and like it's fine if that's how he's looking at it, but then you want the book to back off a little bit and show you more the other side at the end, and it doesn't. Like that's just the feeling you're left with, and it's really kind of strange. And this does a much better job of making it more complicated. And because the emphasis is a lot more still on Tony and Steve's relationship and on the mistakes that both of them have made and the question of whether their relationship could ever bounce back from this. So it's more than bittersweet for Tony. Like you get to the end and yeah, his side kind of won, but like Rhodey's paralyzed now, and he's lost his friendship with Steve, and he doesn't really want the Accords as much as he has to kind of pretend like he does. Pretty clearly, like it's just a stopgap measure. And of course, with Iron Man and Captain America, it becomes the difference and this is the big consistent thing with their opposing worldviews all the way through, between ends-based ethics on Iron Man's side and virtue-based ethics on Captain America's side. And Captain America, and this is what makes this more of a Captain America movie than I at one time I appreciated. And we should talk about the title thing. Just check back in on that, because you and I have always been kind of on opposing sides with that.
Having a civil war, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My feelings on it have changed some, but not entirely. So anyway, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
what makes it more of a Captain America movie is that this is the place where the world is pushing back on his stubbornness in always doing the right thing no matter what the consequences are, and finally allowing him to compromise and do the wrong thing, which we've never really seen him do before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the compartmentalization thing in not telling Tony about his parents' murder. And it should maybe bother me that the big mistake he makes in this, he's already made. Like, it's off screen, and somehow it works.
When I remember even at the time, I thought it was weird that the twist of this movie is something that's just in Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a cool way, like, for, as a sequel, is, okay, we're building off of something that we showed you in Winter Soldier.
But I just never put it together or really thought much about it. So, like, it's funny, like, it's a twist and it's not a twist, but, like, it rounds back around and is a twist again. And of course, you didn't know all the details and, like, exactly what was going on with his parents.
Yeah, exactly. You get a little bit more info on that too.
What do you think Howard Stark is doing exactly with Super Soldier material? Because we're not really told what's happening with that. It's just in the back of his car.
I mean, I guess I would have to imagine he's probably involved in some sort of revival on that program.
Yeah, I mean, we know he is connected to S.H.I.E.L.D.
It would have to be something with that, yeah. Like, they're just... And I mean, I guess retroactively now you can say it has to do with that... Was it Isaiah Bradley, I think?
Oh, sure.
Captain
Maybe
America?
so.
Like, maybe, I guess. But, like, obviously they don't know that here.
And we've already had Ant-Man by now. That's the movie right before this. So we've seen an older Hank Pym still dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D. And Oh, you know what? For a second, I wasn't sure when that takes place, but I'm suddenly remembering the year for that is 1989. So it's 2 years before this. So we actually know.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the exact.
We actually know the exact timeline with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because doesn't he at the beginning of Ant-Man throw his hands in the air and just walk away from S.H.I.E.L.D. entirely? Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, he's got Super Soldier material, and he's not working with S.H.I.E.L.D. probably. So that's interesting.
Yeah, well, and that's after, like, that would be after Janet's gone.
Yeah.
So, like, the Ant-Man and Wasp stuff has already kind of come and happened, like, come and gone.
So I was
every
surprised...
time this movie comes up when I'm at a family dinner, I have to hear my uncle complain about how Captain America can't outrun Black Panther and Bucky. That's something I just had to mention because I've heard it a million times.
Is he right about it?
I mean, probably, but like it's happening just so we can have an action scene. Like, I don't know. I don't feel deeply about it.
I was surprised.
It's maybe funnier after Infinity War, where you have the part where they like run off together. But anyways,
so I'll just get this out real quick. I was surprised to find out in the Russo's commentary that Black Panther's suit in this is entirely CG, and I don't know if they continue with that, but like he's wearing an actual Black Panther suit in these scenes,
it's
but
like
then
way bigger, yeah.
But then they superimpose a complete 100% CG suit on top of it just to have shinier material, because they just
when they do the same thing with Spider-Man.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, Spider-Man's on-set suit is like the definitive live-action Spider-Man suit, and I love the actual one they went with, but there is that part of me that's like, oh man, we almost had it perfect. No, so I think Black Panther's just kind of always CGI. This shot here, where he's like sliding after Cap tackles him, I think looks a little wonky. Like he looks CGI. Outside of that, I have no issues with how he looks in this movie. And when he gets that new suit in the first movie, I have an issue with him every time he shows up. His second suit that he gets in that film, that he carries through the next two Avengers, looks so badly CGI.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Especially because I really like the purple in it. Like, I like this suit a lot, but when they...
Yeah, and I don't have that, but
I
fair enough.
I just think it looks really cool. Well, and like it's purple, it's regal, he's the king. Like I like that after he becomes
I hate his glowing
king,
purple power.
He gets that, but
no, I think he looks perfect in this movie.
But we don't have to agree on
this is such a good suit.
I just think
I agree. I agree. We don't have to agree on that, but no, I think he looks perfect in this movie. And yeah, I don't. I'm assuming you saw the pictures then. Like he's got like a giant suit in that on set. Like it's way bigger than like the skin tight one we have here.
No, I haven't seen that. I'll look for that.
Yeah, it's like really bulky.
I like that we have this really intense action scene. This is one of my favorite transitions in an MCU movie.
Oh, to them making dinner?
Yeah, we have this really intense action scene that ends with Black Panther getting arrested, and then the very next line is that or is a pinch? A pinch? Like, it's hilarious.
That is not paprikash. Perhaps we should order a pizza.
That's already thicker than her accent is.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Austin.
You're right.
You're giving her too much credit.
I like that this is a scene that starts more wholesome than it actually is.
Yes.
Like as the scene goes on, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
like there's more to this.
Isn't it interesting that we establish their bond? Like they start flirting, we get the sense that they like each other. We don't even go into a full-on romance, but you see the seeds of it, especially if you're a comics person. You know these are two characters that are supposed to get together, because we didn't really do too much to begin to develop that in Ultron. There wasn't any time. Like he was just born there, and so like they get a little bit of screen time together, but like they're flirting, they're starting a relationship here, and then immediately they end up on opposite ends of this war, which is cool because the Civil War in this versus the comics is much more of like, I mean, there's an actual battle, but it's more of like a metaphorical civil war in like a war in families. And the Russos talk about this in their commentary, and I agree with them. And was thinking this on this viewing already, because I've always thought that Rhodey probably should have died in this, because I think it's weird to have a movie called Civil War and nobody dies, and I think they've won me over on this now, because they, like, the Russos do a good job of tackling several fan complaints. I think they got to do the commentary shortly after the movie was released. They actually got to hear some of the complaints, and they tackle that, and they say, well, the problem is if a character dies on either side, everybody is going to look like horrible people and a lot less sympathetic if they don't all immediately stop the fighting and make it all about that. And
absolutely, I've always thought that, and I don't think Tony helps Steve at the end of this movie if his best friend is killed while trying to stop them.
I think that's true. I just never appreciated that, because I think it's just the kind of the superficial notion of how do you have a movie with war in the title and nobody dies? And they won me over on that in their argument that, well, it's like a family civil war. And it is already really different from the comics when you take out the secret identity aspect of it, and it's really just about these people that are already in this kind of family situation. And so anyway, I say all that to say that's the thing I like about Wanda and Vision being on opposite sides, is it's like it's like that dynamic when you have like two sides of a family that are at odds with each other, and like you have like children or spouses or people that are on other ends of it, and they get split. And so like I really like that about it.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, part of the ending with this is I really like that they are just left broken.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they never really recover.
No, and I mean, for everyone on Iron Man's side, like this is kind of the last good moments these characters are gonna have.
It's really sad. I mean, you have an Avengers team that is together in Endgame, but like some of them are different characters, and like these people never fully come back together.
Well, I mean, that's part of why Thanos wins too.
Yeah. And that's probably a good segue to the whole title talk about this, because obviously a lot of people look at this as more of an Avengers movie than a Captain America movie, and the team and the idea of the Avengers is indisputably important. That's the like initial inciting incident of the whole thing, is should the Avengers have to register? Like, it is about them. I've always been weird, Austin, about the title having just Captain America's name in it, with the idea of Civil War, but I never really wanted Avengers in the title, because it's, and I appreciated this even more on this viewing, it is an Avengers movie and it isn't, right? Because your main villain is a Captain America villain. B, you're following up to all the Bucky stuff. C, the score sounds like the last movie. Like, production-wise, it's all very, very Captain America.
Yeah, I mean, Steve and Bucky are the main characters.
And the other thing is, you don't have two of your original main six Avengers. They've left. And a lot of the characters that are coming into this that have to pick sides are not themselves actually Avengers, whether they ever will be or not. So the argument that it is an Avengers movie is more just what that initial idea is, and that team is important. And so what I'm coming to realize about it is that it's an Avengers movie. It's backwards from the other team movies. So it's an Avengers movie in the same way as the actual Avengers movies are themselves the next chapter for Iron Man and Captain America, etc. So I've always seen Avengers as like Iron Man 2.5, and I've broken this down before, and I always had that joke about how that movie is like Black Widow 0.8, because she shows up in Iron Man 2, but she still doesn't get her own movie until like forever down the road. So now I'm realizing that this is that, but backwards. Like, it's the next chapter for all these Avengers characters, but it's like Avengers 2.5. Which is interesting because there's a quote from Feige when he's defending the title choice before the movie even comes out, where he calls it that.
Yeah, I remember them saying that at the time, and then seeing it and going, "Oh, like it's just a Captain America movie." And I mean, I've always said a big part too is the Avengers also get taken out like halfway, or I guess second act.
That's true too. I mean, it does just come down to those two guys at the end.
I've always said that this movie gets that reputation just because they're in this movie, and because Tony Stark has been a protagonist in previous films. People aren't willing to engage with it as he's the antagonist, but like structurally, that's what he is in this movie. He is the main antagonist.
Yeah, and like that's fair. I respect that. I'm just gonna push back and say that's not the only way to look at it. I personally actually kind of agree with you on that, but also I don't mean to make the argument this is what the creators intended, so this is what it is. But when I the more I'm seeing it, the more I'm having that. When I first saw this, I thought it really just depended on whose side you were on, and that's what that's the way the Russos talk about it, and that's how I took it when I first saw it. So I actually still do kind of feel like it sort of depends on whose side you land on.
But I think you can say that about any story. Like really, at the end of the day, like you can watch a movie and agree more with a villain. Like,
So the reason I don't agree with that is because they both make huge mistakes by the end. Like they're both wrong.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I don't think they're well, I mean they can't both be right about this because they don't agree, but like one of them is right and one of them is wrong as far as the initial ideological conflict with the Accords goes, but like they both make big mistakes by the end. The problem with the way you're talking about it is that when you get to the end of the movie, like Captain America kind of doesn't win.
mhm.
And so it's not a typical superhero movie in that way.
Sure,
And
but I
so
mean,
it
it's also allowed to break, formula in that sense. Like, I'm just saying, like, as a story, Tony is your big antagonizing force to your main protagonist. That is the one constantly pushing them down. Like, every time he's trying to do something, he is the force pushing back. And I don't know if Tony gets enough in this film for me to say dual protagonist. I mean, you could, but like,
that's what I'm saying is
I
I just
still
think
think it is much more an antagonist
I can just see
protagonist
both sides of
relationship.
it. Like
Mhm.
I actually personally look at it that way myself, but I think there is an argument to maybe be made for dual protagonists. It's complicated because this is the next chapter for two characters that we've seen as protagonists and sometimes together all the way up, and I don't think that comes down to screen time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, like by the end, like it is their conflict, like that the movie's about, and even Zemo will like take a backseat to that. Like Zemo, I see much more as just getting the ball rolling, as
Yeah.
opposed to being the main antagonist.
Well, I think that's why some people really don't like him because they can kind of see this movie without him.
Mhm.
And I'm a little bit of two minds about that. There's a part of me that doesn't want a conspiracy that makes the two sides have to fight.
Mhm. I mean, it also helps that he's not fully like they would still be having this issue. It's everything's just kind of like adding on to the complication. And they all spawn from the same thing too, which I also think helps with like the convenience
No,
factor.
that's true. And you just need something, as the Rousseau say in their commentary, to get to the end and push the button on a VCR.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and he is one of I guess two MCU villains that like really win and like accomplish their goal like completely. 'Cause, I mean, you can kind of say that about Doctor Strange, but like they also just die.
Yeah, and he's a really good foil for obviously every other character in the movie that is considering revenge. And so you do kind of need him as like as that extreme, and you need him for Black Panther. I mean, I think he's almost more important for Black Panther than he is anybody else in the movie.
Mhm.
Just as a foil and as a plot device. Uh,
Yeah,
because
absolutely. And that's one of the best scenes of the movie,
it
I think,
is.
is their scene together. Yeah.
When you get to the end and Black Panther says, "Vengeance has consumed them; it won't consume me." Like you need someone to be the ire of that. I
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite lines too is also that
How else do you get Bucky back into Winter Soldier?
mhm.
So yeah, like it would be a completely different movie, and I think that's the thing I didn't appreciate on first viewing. Also, Austin is you'd be having to restructure and rewrite this entire thing without
Mhm.
that. It is kind of built all around that. So I'm going to say simultaneously, yes, he's a plot device, but like he is a character. He does come from a place. He's
Mhm.
not Whiplash, where like he he does his thing and then why is he here?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. But I like that he's not just a Hydra agent too, like coming back to do this. I like that he is a
Yeah,
separate entity. Because Zemo in the comics is the one that kills Bucky, like originally.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mhm. Yeah, there's actually Zemo is like a lineage. Like Zemo goes back to World War II, and
Oh,
then there is a modern day Zemo as
it's
well.
cool that they've got that comics connection.
Hmm. Yeah, because that's something I think you maybe. I mean, it's one of those things again where you're kind of rewriting the character, but you maybe could have had like some form of older Zemo, but you wouldn't have the same lineage where he's like trying to honor his family legacy.
Also, I'll just get this out while I'm thinking about it, while we're watching a Winter Soldier fight, and while Winter Soldier is programmed here. I like the way Winter Soldier plays thematically here as a representation of, and I don't know if this is intended, but this came to me on this last viewing, Austin. I'm seeing Winter Soldier as kind of a symbol of what the government is trying to turn the Avengers into.
Mhm. Okay, like in what way?
Where he is this programmed automaton that you can
Oh,
program
sorry, I
and
misheard you. I thought you said Zemo. Sorry,
no
Bucky.
no
Yeah,
no Winter Soldier,
yeah.
where you can
No, I agree completely.
where you can just point him at whoever you want to kill, and he has no say in the matter. And that's the whole reason Captain America won't sign. And I love that the guy that he's trying to save, and that I don't know. It's such a good dramatic thrust immediately after the argument for and against the Accords comes up. The very next thing they have to deal with, to each side trying to suggest which one is right, is this character that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but
Oh, that's okay. Sorry, I probably threw you off, mishearing you. Um. Oh, people are also asking about super chats too. There's like quite a few.
yeah, I'll get to those in just a second, guys. Sorry, we're just
Yeah, no worries. I just thought I'd mention that in case you didn't notice.
had a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, and I was just trying to hang on to all of it. There's so much going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you are like very right though about like your connection with Winter Soldier being like the ultimate like extreme of what the Avengers could be under the Sokovia Accords.
It's just really neat. That's the next thing that they have to deal with.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, and I like that we get this sequence too, where he is just full Winter Soldier again, because this is kind of the last time we'll really do that. It's also fun getting Iron Man in an action scene in this film where he's not in a suit.
Yeah, I don't know if we've done that since Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 3.
I guess Iron Man 3 does some of that. That's true.
But like
Chris
the
Evans
Avengers
has
movies don't really do that.
these gigantic muscles in the scene.
That is true. If only he knew that
They're really emphasizing that.
the Winter Soldier was going to do that thing where you play tug of war and then you like give some gifts so they
Let's go.
fall over.
You
If
really
only you knew the Winter Soldier would have done that.
You really don't want to do that with a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I remember what I was going to say, Austin. Sorry for getting thrown off like that, but it's just interesting to me that Iron Man's side, in my mind anyway, kind of proves themselves wrong by jumping the gun and going after Winter Soldier incorrectly, because like he is the in movie red herring on the part of Zemo, because he full on frames Winter Soldier for something he didn't do. But then the argument gets really interesting, because then Zemo programs Winter Soldier to actually go kill people. So now the government side is more right in going after him because he is a giant liability. In the same way as, not the same way, but similarly anyway, to their wanting to keep Wanda under lock and key because, I mean, if she can't control her powers, she is dangerous. So, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not taking up for complete government control because, again, you can't trust that. But the idea that you know, unchecked power. I mean, this is always the mutant, you know, X-Men conundrum, where it's like on the one hand you want people to have freedom, and on the other hand, if your power is is you are an atomic bomb that
Well,
you
it is
can't
like the
control, how do you again, the freedom versus security thing? How do you let that person be like have a real life and have due process and all of that, and also not let thousands of people die? And
Well, it's where the minority symbolism with X-Men like kind of falls off, right? Where it's like, but then you also have that on top of it. It's like there is an argument
right, yeah,
for
and that's what's so interesting about it to me
for
because
that. Mhm.
yeah, because then, you know, all people at that point are not exactly equal. Not that people are intellectually superior or anything, but that, like, if again, if you are an atomic bomb, you can't scream racism when people want to make sure that the atomic bomb doesn't go outside and kill everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just really appreciate that this gets into that, and
Well, especially
that's
because
where
we're gonna see what Wanda does after this movie.
that's true. But that's where both sides do have something of an argument, except the Captain America side is still winning out for me because, of course, the government side immediately overuses their power, or like abuses their power right away. And then, of course, on the superhero side, the question is just always like, can you be sure that the people with power, just on the government side, are going to use it wisely? That they're altruistic, which is a thing that you can believe more in this than in the comic, because we're not talking about, again, just anybody in a costume. We are talking about people that were you know, handpicked to do this. But then that also gets clouded because Avengers in this, because you always talk about how post 9/11 this universe is, and you know, like Iron Man specifically. We start
Yeah, it's better than
from
that first Iron Man.
a shield and government place in the first place with this. Like, two of our initial 6 Avengers are shield agents before they're superheroes, and so this was, and like Bruce Banner is brought in, like by Shield. We start this universe as a with superheroes as a like government sanctioned, like hired thing in the first place. So that's real different from the comics, where there's this big question about whether they should be volunteers or be paid. There's no talk about that in this.
Yeah, it's one of those things like how every hero in the MCU also like has no issues killing people, where it's like they're not exactly the same. But it is interesting though now that you say that the Civil War comic is super post 9/11, like in its talk of the what is that bill? The I can't think of what it's called, because the one after 9/11 that book's commenting on. But you don't really have that as much here. Well, like in the book, it's very much dealing with that.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie, just in concept, is not.
The Patriot Act. Sorry, it just came to me.
You know, I almost said that, but I wasn't sure if that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. My mind kept going to Registration Act. I'm like, no, it's a real act.
Let me go ahead and hit these super chats. Bob the Hun, $10 super chat. The idea of Civil War from Millar was that as many issues there are with superheroes, we still need them, so we wouldn't ban them like in Incredibles or Watchmen. And I'm glad he brought up the Watchmen thing, because that is kind of the milieu that we're in here with the deconstruction. He says, so we could regulate or license them.
Which I guess is closer to what it is in Dark Knight Returns than Watchmen. Because obviously, like, Batman goes down, but like Superman's just working for the government.
Right. He's like a Dr. Manhattan or something. And again, the comic makes that big distinction between state-sponsored superheroes and just regular vigilantes, and we don't have that in this because the argument's a little bit different, and what the act does is different.
Mm-hmm.
Because with this, it simply
Yeah, exactly.
says these people have to work for the government. That's really
Mhm.
all it is.
Well, that's why it doesn't, affect Spider-Man or like a lot of these other characters after the fact. Because a lot of people complain about that with the MCU moving forward, is that they're like, "Oh, Civil War has no lasting stakes because we're not dealing with that anymore." We never really talk about the Sokovia Accords after this movie.
It
Like,
comes up
it'll get like
here and
referenced here and
there,
there.
but it's not a
Exactly.
gigantic. Yeah.
But like the emotional stakes of the characters have huge, lasting effects after this film.
So I'll get back to super chats here in a second. I know Austin's going to want to talk about this scene.
Queens.
So yeah, and apparently I was telling you this off camera, but apparently the giant titles were not a Rousseau thing. That was just the editor that came up with that. And this editor goes back at least to First Avenger. I
Okay.
and so it's not just the guy that Rousseau's work with, like he was already here. Um so I think it's interesting that he comes up with those titles and they keep doing it through the rest of the Rousseau's movies.
Mhm.
And they talk about that as just a choice to be because we're globe hopping so much that if you put it too small, it like the bottom of the screen, people might miss it, and they like literally they just wanted to make sure that people knew where they were, but they also think that it's a good transition, like it's a good way to transition between tones. So every time they do it, it's kind of like a new major section, or at least arguably a lot of them are that way. And so I think that makes sense. And then they talk about how it was just a happy accident that uh, everybody freaks out when they see Queens because they know Spider-Man's coming, and they didn't really
Oh, I was definitely very excited the first time in the theater when Queens
and
popped
like
up.
they didn't intend that. It was just it just worked out that way. So that's kind of cool.
Hmm. So we have the dumpster diver thing, which would be like immediately abandoned. I do wish that they
Yeah.
kept that. That's like my one thing from this movie where I'm like, I wish you built more on that element of what's in this scene. But at least we get more of this costume.
When you get to Homecoming, they do a good job of certainly making this feel like the same character.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard people complain that they don't have that he's more competent in this movie than he is in Homecoming, and I don't really agree. But uh, it is interesting.
If I had to make an argument for it, it would be 15-year-old kid trying to impress his hero.
When I think it's
And I
more
mean, you do
he's jumping
have
into a fight
you do have that
that
in Homecoming also, but you get to see Spider-Man doing things without Tony Stark around. And so I think it's more there's just this whole less mature aspect to his personality that's not allowed to shine here because he's got to play with the grown-ups, and so he's trying to be on his best behavior. That's how I
when
look at it.
I think he's also, being dumped into a fight that no one's actually trying. Like
Right.
they're all punching and holding back. While after that, when he's dealing with real criminals, he doesn't really have that. I agree with what you're saying. I do think that makes sense too. But I think it's probably a combination of both, at the very least. Like Captain America would lay him out if he needed to in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself when I say this, but I think people that, with all due respect, people that complain that the airport fight is like too silly and jovial, and that some of that action they feel like doesn't make sense. I I, I don't know that they appreciate how what's the word I'm looking for? Like in my mind, it makes sense that those characters would be that playful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that like
Yeah,
they're going to pull
absolutely.
their
I mean,
punches. They
they're
don't want to hurt their friends, and
mhm.
not all of them feel as strongly about the legislation as some others of them do. Like that's part of it. They're
Mhm.
all there for different reasons, and
Mhm.
the situation of the book is just really different.
When I've always said Spider-Man's only here because Tony wants that webbing. Uh, you, the like first thing he says to him is just hang back and web them.
In
And the
fact,
first thing he says when he gets here is, "This webbing's great. Where do you where's it manufactured?
yeah, well, in
Oh, you make it? Okay."
the Russos confirm that because they say it makes sense that Tony Stark would go to him because he's looking for someone with like non-lethal abilities.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
now
it's
now let's get to the parts of this that don't make sense to people. I've
the
always
hypocrisy angle.
yes, and that's really the worst thing about Tony Stark is the hypocrisy. Um,
Absolutely.
I
It's just true.
I will say I am in the camp, and I sort of see the argument on and the Russos talk about this too. I sort of see their argument, but they did not totally win me over on this. Where they say yes, Tony is going to a 15-year-old kid, but he is always at odds with his heroic side and his narcissistic side, and he is going to often do like really sketchy, immoral things to get what he needs out of a situation. Again, he's also ends based, and my response to that is okay, but it is just kind of odd that he would even think to go to a 15-year-old kid, and I think that is a place where we're kind of working backwards from a conclusion a little bit, maybe, where it's like
They definitely are.
that
I
we
agree
didn't,
with that.
and I think it's handled as organically as it possibly can, but it watches like a studio mandate, and there's just no way around it. Where you go,
Mhm.
you're gonna use Spider-Man, and you got to work him in there somewhere. Now, on the Russos, to the Russos' credit, they loved getting Spider-Man in this, and they were told to have a B plan in case it didn't work out with Sony. And they wanted it so bad they never came up with that B plan. They just hoped it would work out. So it's not like they're stuck with something they don't want to do. So like they're
Mhm.
doing the best they can to make that seem organic and logical, but there's no way around it. It's a little contrived. Like it just is.
No, it definitely is. I do think like it's part of that side of his character that like he is making mistakes, and I do think part of that is that he is like kind of emotionally compromised throughout this film. And like I've always said that I think that if Spider-Man just had his webbing like manufactured somewhere, he would cut Peter out entirely. But
Probably so.
I agree with I agree with you. I do think it is ultimately contrived, like just to get Spider-Man here. And I mean, I did say that from the beginning. Like, I do agree with that. We are working from he has to be in this movie. We have the ability, and
Yeah.
we want him to be here. So like, they are working backwards to get that in.
But like I think it's worth it at the end of the day. Like it is contrived. It is a little flawed, but I like his you alluded to this earlier. I like his introduction thematically that he breaks down what the whole thing is about. And what's interesting about that is if he was a little older and more mature and could see the forest for the trees, he would not be on Tony Stark's side.
Mhm.
Like he's talking about having power and responsibility. He doesn't come right out and say that, which I guess I appreciate. But he's talking about
I could have.
how
I wouldn't have had an issue with that.
yeah, when you have the power to stop something and you don't, I like that's bad and he can't have that. And
Mhm.
if he took that to its furthest conclusion and he signed the accords, he's got a government telling him when he can do the right thing and when he can.
Mhm.
And so he would not be on that side. And I've always kind of questioned in the comics whether Spider-Man would start on the side he starts on. Now, I'm glad he flips,
Mhm.
but it always seemed a little easy to me. And admittedly, I don't remember a lot of
It's
what's
so we
around
can.
it.
It's
But
so that we
like,
can have the big Spider-Man unmasked scene.
yeah, that's also contrived.
Yeah, it's they're writing backwards from a thing that they wanted to do. No, I like that scene both sums up. I mean, really, I think it kind of sums up both of their sides to a degree, and
Yeah.
Peter Parker as a character. I do think he probably should have just said, "With great power comes great responsibility." I think it's become like endlessly frustrating that we had, and I mean, I guess we get it in No Way Home, but two rebooted Spider-Mans that dance completely around it, and it's like, just say it. Like, it's so much more contrived and annoying when you say it without saying it.
Yeah, but if you were gonna say it, you also would need to allow him to attribute it to his Uncle Ben, and apparently they're not gonna do that. So,
Yeah.
let me read these other super chats. Robert Wild.
At the very least, there is an implication of an Uncle Ben in that scene where he goes after everything that's been happening. Or no, I guess that's in Homecoming. There's a line at the beginning of that scene with Aunt May that I think implies Uncle Ben, and it's not coming to me.
No, it's clearly absolutely implied. And the Rousseaus talk about. I'll get the super chats in a second. And thank you guys for the support. I'll try to keep up with those a little bit better. We had a long stretch where I was like, don't forget.
There's a lot to talk about in this movie. Yeah.
But they talk about something I'd never thought of before, which is they intentionally put Peter in this real small, cramped apartment to try to make that look as realistic as it could, and they intentionally made his bedroom look like it's maybe not been lived in very long, to suggest that possibly when Uncle Ben died, they had money problems and they had to move out of their house, and they haven't been in there for very long. I never had that thought. That's why there's not posters on the walls. That's why he's got crates in his room. That's great. I never thought of that.
Yeah, well, that's something I've always thought with. He's in a different apartment every time we see him, and I've always thought that was part of it, but we just don't get enough into that.
I really like Paul Rudd in this movie.
Yes. As baffled as I am by the orange slices line, I do like him in the scene.
Dude, I think his line reading suggests that he is baffled by that line. Now, like, I know that he improvised some things and other things are scripted, but the way he says it, his emphasis is on slices and not orange, and it makes me think he doesn't understand what the line means. Because he goes, does anyone have any orange slices? And I'm like, why are you saying that? Do you know why you're saying that?
When his best line, I think, is where he's really excited to see Cap, and then he turns to Scarlet Witch and is awkwardly like, "Oh yeah, I know you too. You're great." Because I'm like 800% sure he has no idea who she is.
So, because of that, I had this thought today. You don't need Kamala Khan as the raving fangirl. You already have him.
When you already kind of have that with Spider-Man too, like they both have an element of that.
Like, and I realize that the fangirl thing is out of the comics, and they're trying to be true to that, but they kind of play it with her like they've never done it before, and they have. Like, I guess that's more like the raving obsessive thing where she's got all this merchandise, some of which I don't know if I buy would actually exist, and you always like to complain that she loves Nick Fury, and that's kind of odd, and...
Yeah. Can I complain about this scene?
Yeah.
Just how tonally awkward it is that we stop in the middle of this, like, their argument, and then we're gonna have like a little comedic beat now with Spider-Man, and then Tony's gonna like light switch back into being dramatic. And I also think a lot of this looks rough. Like, I don't think... Like, I can see the kind of CGI around Downey in this movie where it's a floating head on top of his suit. And some of the cutaways, like with Black Widow earlier, look like she's on a green screen. Like, so it also is not a visually great-looking scene on top of that.
Well, that's because she is on a green screen.
Yeah, no, of course.
Of course. And I don't mean to talk too much about behind-the-scenes stuff, but I was baffled to find out, because I didn't know this, that most of this stuff is on a green screen, but in order to get the daylight right, they're shooting in a backlot, and they're shooting in like 100+ degree weather, so they are killing themselves for green screen material, and I think that's preposterous. Just that they have to go through that to get this. Really, you can't come up with lamps that look enough like sunlight? You have to go outside, even though you're on green screen, and make everyone suffer? That's insane!
No, that is something I knew, because I remember there's an interview from around when this came out with like the whole cast, or like most of them, and like most of the heroes, and they talk about that, and they're like, Downey, how did you like dealing with that? And he's like, the mask goes down, I'm gone, I'm off having a martini, I'm not there for the fight. Sebastian Stan's delivery there, where he looks up at Spider-Man and goes, "What the hell is that?" is really weird and robotic, and it's always made me laugh.
So, I shouldn't say modern, but like recent MCU has really put the whole MCU humor problem in perspective for me, or maybe I should say my standards have become lower than they should be, because I go back and look at this movie, and in comparison, that stuff does not feel as intrusive as it did when this came out, but like, it's still there, and it's still maybe more of a problem because of what it wrought later. Like, if it's not for some of this stuff, and I can't blame just this movie, because obviously it starts with Whedon, arguably, but like, the thing you were complaining about, where we stop everything for a joke, and then he gets real serious again, looking back at Captain America, yeah, that's undeniably that.
That's the only time I have it in this movie. It's just because it's so light switchy. Like, there is literally a shot of him where he turns and then is angry again, and it's like really awkward.
It's almost like they shot them
separately. A lot of the comedy in
the
sequence, I think, does work.
It's almost like they shot them separately and they struggled to integrate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. The greatest on-screen Spider-Man joke to ever be put in live action is also, "Hey buddy, I think you lost this." That is just straight up comic Spider-Man. It's great.
What I like about this fight being as playful as it is, and like, I'm not going to begrudge anybody's taste issue if they think this movie gets too light at this point with how heavy it is in a lot of other places. First of all, I just want to say I love how ultra serious and like Winter Soldier serious this movie gets, while still being really fun all the way around. That's a tough tonal thing to crack, and I think it really accomplishes it. Some people agree with me, but not with this scene, and I still have it through this. What I like, for the most part, what I like about how playful this is this feels like what Bronze Age Marvel would have done with this concept. And
absolutely,
the Civil War comics, like to somebody's point earlier, feel like Ultimate, and it's like I finally get to see what a 616 version of this should be. That's what I like about it.
No, I agree with that completely. Also, the Arrested Development blue cars in the sequence, and that's amazing. But
yeah, they talked about that in the commentary. I don't know what that means, but they kept saying that.
The main
and they
character
said it's in a bunch
that...
of scenes. They kept putting it in the background.
The main character in that show can't afford his own car, so he drives a stair car, like one of the stair cars to get into a plane. So just every time you see a stair car in the sequence, it's the Arrested Development car, and it's a really funny joke in that show. But I do like that they kind of pepper and stuff like that from the things that they've worked on.
So do you think the setting for this scene is kind of lame? Like, just doing this in a barren, blank airport? Like, you don't have the collateral damage problem. Like, I kind of get the point of doing this in a big, like, broad, nobody's there kind of area like this, but I can't decide what to do with airport. Like, is there any story or thematic reason to have it here, or is it just a place that...
Yeah, and I mean, I know people complain about, like, how gray it is. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. Like, it's definitely, muted in terms of that. In terms of it, like, having to be an airport, I think it is just we have a like a barren place.
I'd love it to mean something, and I just I can't.
This
I
is
can't
where
come
the
up with
Avengers
anything.
take their departure. They are done as a group from now on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's as good as anything I'd come up with. But yeah, I
That in
couldn't.
an airport, it sucks to be at an airport. So wouldn't you want to kick people's asses at the airport?
I was really trying to pretentiously BS something, and I had nothing with it.
Hmm.
Okay, let me read through these super chats.
Black
Robert.
Panther is from a foreign country. You get to a foreign country by a plane via an airport.
Well, and we keep globetrotting. We're going to lots of different places in this movie, and so now we're
Exactly.
in the place where you get on a plane to go to those places. I don't know. I'm grasping. I got nothing. Anyway, let me read the super chats.
Yeah.
Robert says, I love this film, but Tony creating Ultron should come up more. If Avengers are keeping that secret from the public and the government, it should be clear. I have exactly the same thing. I don't know what people understand about that movie. I mean, in universe.
That's what I'm excited to get to because I have 8 million issues with that movie. Absolutely.
But like, regardless of your feelings about it, it is just weird that we don't know what the public knows about it.
No, but I mean, like stuff like that is like part of the issue. Like that's what I mean. Like I have a lot of issues like that with that movie. Like on top of it just being bad.
But like, regardless of what that movie tells us about that, why can't this tell us that? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
Teddy $10 super chat. I think Tony's big line that summarizes his view on all of this is we do this now so it isn't done to us later. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just a stopgap measure. It's
yeah, like I said, he's not even really full registration. Like it's just he's registration in order to then fix the registration idea,
which he partly wants to do. In his mind, because of mistakes he's made before, and interestingly, it's kind of just the same mistake again. Where it's like let's do this thing because it's like, well, in this case, path of least resistance, but it's like let's do this thing because of the consequences or lack thereof we think there will be after that, and that always gets him into trouble, which is the big thing that Captain America has always been against, and why he's of course made a horrible mistake at the end of this. But like Age of Ultron, again, he says, shield over the world, and then that ends up biting him in this. He's like, oh God, I have to pay for that. So I'm going to give carte blanche to the government. And surely things will be better after that. And like, it's kind of the same mistake again. It's like, because I guess what I mean is, I'm not being very articulate. I guess what I mean is it's a not great thing to do now because you think the consequences will be better later. And the point is, no, it's wrong, so don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's also still security over freedom, so it's the same mistake. Which he wants to do because he had that worldview before.
I love that Vision just is not even in this fight. He's just flying above them because he can easily outpower all of them. That is part of this. Cap's team is way less powerful, so we have to kind of finagle ways for them be able to be in this fight.
And it's so hard to do that without massive contrivances like that because you just don't.
I just like that every now and then you'll get a shot and he's just flying above them.
Yeah, no, that's
I just think that's really amusing.
I mean, Vision and Wanda are both too powerful for all of this. And obviously, that's why you have to have them on opposite sides. But that's not a thing that strikes me as too contrived the way they get us there. Like
No,
that
I don't think
that one I
so.
buy. And the drama there is really nice, and they kind of mirror that with or parallel it with Hawkeye and Black Widow. I always forget Hawkeye's even in this movie until we get to him.
Yeah, he's just kind of here. He never gets anything to do, but he's fun.
It's also really funny because we sort of do the same thing with him in Endgame.
He at least gets more to do in that movie.
No, he does,
Yeah,
but it's a lot of the
basically.
movie before you get there. Oh, that's right, Hawkeye's in this.
He at least gets to open the movie.
Is he in the opening?
Yeah, the opening is the death of his family.
Oh, you know what? That's true. I forgot about that. I guess I was just thinking about the Ronin thing, but yeah.
Oh yeah. But also with like the power imbalance thing, the movie also knows that in that
Yes.
it's part of why the team has to lose.
But yeah, it definitely has that fighting game problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to make fighting games with superhero characters where you buy the power sets together, because you have those characters that just can't possibly beat other characters. It's like, why would you ever pick Black Canary up against Superman in Injustice? Well, because you actually can beat Superman with Black Canary in that game. You shouldn't be able to, but you can.
No, I totally buy that Hawkeye can beat up Iron Man and Iron Man with more guns.
So the green screen on Captain America here is as bad as it is in Winter Soldier.
The green screen just on all of them in that scene is not very good. It's seeing that like little moment.
So all he had, I know you and I have complained about this ad nauseum on other streams. All he had to do is not say that really old movie, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's all it is. That and not say the walkie thingies.
Oh, sure. And I think it's just
It's
also
more weird
awkward.
that that's just a Russo thing. It like keeps happening. I assume that will also happen in Doomsday and Secret Wars.
Yeah, we keep calling back to it. Like now it's a running gag.
Mm-hmm.
The odd thing to me is that he calls it Empire Strikes Back as if that's a title of a standalone movie that's not part of a franchise. Like that old movie, Empire Strike. If he just said, "Do you remember in Star Wars?" we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like,
oh, I'm fine with him just saying in Empire Strikes Back.
well,
I think
me
that's
too.
fine.
But even if he said that old movie Star Wars, I'd almost feel less weird about
Oh no,
it.
I need that old movie part cut out.
No, I don't
That's
like
the
that
part
either.
that I take issue with.
But I don't know, for like a younger guy that maybe didn't grow up with that stuff.
Because no, he should 100% say Empire and not just blanket Star Wars.
Yeah, unless he just
Although
saw them once and doesn't remember where it was from. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you just saw it on TV once, like I could see that.
but he is Peter Parker.
That makes a lot more
Like,
sense than Empire Strikes Back. Like,
it's also weirder when you get to Homecoming and he's got like a ton of Star Wars stuff in his bedroom.
yeah,
But
that
we
makes,
don't have that here. But
no,
like
that
he
makes
is
no
geeky
sense.
Peter Parker. You know what it'll be in Doomsday Cap
Well, the
is
problem is, so the
they'll
Russos
reverse.
talked about that because again, they addressed all this stuff, and they talk about it like, well, no, but it really is that old. I think they're trying to get into kids' heads, and they don't understand that a lot of kids.
They're getting into kids' heads, but they're not getting into the geeky kid's head. That's
Right.
the issue.
Yeah, because like, well, I mean,
Because I know I get it from
come out in the early '80s, and I'm like, yeah, but a lot of kids still go back to Star Wars, and if they go back to any of it, they're gonna see that.
well, and the thing is like I get where they would come to that from, like, oh, the kids today. It's just an issue that it's Peter Parker. Like geeky Peter Parker would not say that.
Department's Lover, $10 super chat. The Cap side of it makes no sense if you apply real world politics to it, and how cops and soldiers are regulated, but people who can knock over buildings can just do what they want and be trusted.
Yeah, I mean Cap was a soldier, but I mean he also does have a point in terms of the I mean, like I said, like you brought up the Hydra thing, I brought up like the League of Nations thing. Like them being regulated by the UN also is not a great thing either.
Yeah, I hear where he's coming from But this is, it's complicated, right? Because this wants to be,
exactly.
Well, let me finish. It's complicated because it's trying to be grounded and heightened superhero stuff all at the same time. So it wants to have its cake and eat it too, and I sympathize with this. It's tough, where it's deconstructing the genre and trying to make it a little bit more real-worldy than we would have done it, 30 years ago. But at the same time, it wants to be in a world where we kind of take it as a gimme that you have that's a dead person with a bloody hand in a bathtub.
That's a dead director. That's Joe Russo.
I know. Which you just didn't expect in this movie. Like, oh my god. But
who's gonna direct Secret Wars now? Anthony Russo? He doesn't say anything.
God, he got the psycho treatment. Did you see that? But anyway, it wants to take it as a gimme that we're in a heightened superhero universe where these people are allowed to go fight crime without any oversight, and like at the same time as it makes more sense to do Civil War as this idea is newer. In the real world, if anybody was doing this kind of stuff, you would need a license for it. I mean, you need a license for everything. So I like the yeah, exactly. You gotta have a license in some places to have a yard sale, like much less be a superhero.
Ugh. That's horrible. I hate that.
Yeah, no, we're absolutely already living in a draconian dystopia, Austin.
Yeah.
But I'm getting too political.
I didn't realize you lived in Soviet Russia.
Yeah, I'm getting too political. I'm telling everybody how I feel about yard sales. But but the point I'm making is I like the argument on a like philosophical, theoretical kind of level. He's right, it does break down somewhere, maybe. And that's a place where maybe the comics made a tad more real-world sense, in that it's more the question of, should people that do this be allowed to keep their identity secret? And yes, there was registration in it, but that was the biggest discussion point, the biggest question. And with this, it's, should these people be allowed to work autonomously? And Chewbacca's lover's suggestion is, well, they wouldn't have in the first place. And also, like, here's what I'm confused about. They kind of weren't, though. Like, they start as a S.H.I.E.L.D. built thing in the first place.
No,
and they continue after S.H.I.E.L.D. breaks down. So I was always kind of fuzzy on how connected they are to the government after that.
No, I think by Age of Ultron, they're completely just their own thing.
Just their own thing? Okay.
No, and I mean, that's kind of the issue with Captain America's side in both the movie and the book is, like, okay, you beat up Iron Man who was pro-registration, now what? Like, that's still the law. Like you're just a criminal now? Like, you're just completely, like, against that? Like what is the end goal of Captain America's side?
Well, and I don't think he really has one, which is why
part of why Captain America can't win Civil War.
Well, I think he knows that. I mean, that's why he's underground by the end still. And the next time we see him, he's underground. Like, it's not so much about winning the argument as it is about holding your ground and doing the right thing regardless of the consequences, which is why I say it's virtue ethics versus inmates ethics. He goes... Because Tony is saying, not to go in circles with this, but Tony is saying they're going to do this to us whether we like it or not, so we can either get on board or not do this anymore. He even says that early on. He's like, well, we could retire, that's all we can do. Or maybe it's Ross that says that. And Steve,
it's Ross that says that.
And Steve is going, but the right thing to do is the right thing to do, meaning... we have to go fight crime and stop the bad guys, even if the government doesn't want us to, which means we can't because we can't let them dictate who the bad guys are. So he doesn't really care about winning so much as just he's going to do what he thinks is the right thing.
But I think that's why the movie makes the smart choice of it's not about that. Like at the end of the day, this movie is not about like either side really in terms of the registration of the Sokovia Accords. Like that is part of the issue that they're dealing with, but that is ultimately like not what the movie's really about.
I also think that's one of the reasons the movie gets away with the one big fight we have with the heroes being more playful. Is in the comics very early.
What also then makes the climax way more effective when like the kid gloves are off.
That's true, but what I was going to say is real early on in the book, they're already like rounding up heroes and throwing them in the negative zone, and so it's personal for everybody. It makes sense that all the heroes are physically fighting each other in that in a way that you have to kind of set up a situation in this to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also like that just the whole movie isn't that. Because I don't immediately get excited about, oh yay, heroes are going to fight each other. And that's, of course, a big selling point with this movie for, fans that love that stuff, and you're able to sell it on it. But I like that it doesn't degenerate into just heroes punching each other. And then when our two main guys are doing that at the end, it's for like really, really personal reasons.
No, the Sokovia Accords are like they don't even matter by that point. Like, the reason they're fighting is completely different. Like that obviously is part of why they're so exasperated. Like a lot of the issues are already there.
Oh, Robert answered Chewbacca's Lovers super chat too. Let's see what his point is. He says Cap's point isn't anyone with power should do anything they want. It's that he trusts his team and doesn't want to be told what to do by people in power, especially after Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's kind of what I was saying, but I guess the counter argument to that would be, yeah, but like cops still don't get to just go do anything they want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I guess what I mean is they still get assignments. They still have orders. So yeah, no, I mean it is a good point he's making. That's worth talking about. I think there is a little bit of a gimme with it. Let me see if I'm missing any other super chats here.
I think there is quite a few other super chats.
Yeah, and I'm sorry guys. There's lots of comments here that we just may not get a chance to get to. James Egan, $7.99 super chat. What do you guys think about Tony recruiting Peter? We kind of already did this. Sorry about that. Despite him talking about the kid earlier, defeats his argument a bit, doesn't it? What does he mean by that?
He's saying it defeats his argument that part of it is, we killed this kid.
The kid at the beginning.
Registration. Exactly. And then, I'm going to bring in a teenager for this fight. Like I said, it is hypocrisy, but I do think it is intentional hypocrisy, at least I think. But at the same time, accepting that it is contrived just to get Spider-Man here.
So it's two things, and they're both kind of weak, because that's, as we keep saying, kind of contrived. But the first thing is, one of them has superpowers, and the other one was a
just regular person.
Was a innocent, defenseless kid, comparatively. The second one, which is even much weaker than that argument, is, and I've never really understood this, is the line that Tony has at the beginning of the fight when he says, I didn't carbon date the kid. Where he's
I don't think that's literal though. I think he's just saying that because like he's embarrassed after War Machine calls him out.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you're grasping at straws, that's the only other argument you could throw at it, is that they're pretending like Tony doesn't know he's in high school, which I don't really think is what they're doing, but that would be the only other thing I could possibly think of.
No, and I mean, I gave my reasons for why,
Oh,
like,
well,
I
also
think that is
that's
when we were in
dumb
that scene,
because
but
Peter even told him he had homework. So I mean,
mhm,
like he's living with his aunt. Like he knows he's a kid. I don't know.
mhm. No, I mean, I like talked about that during that scene, like for why I think it is, but it is a hypocrisy.
And so then the question is just, is it an intentional one or not? I tend to think that it is. What one complaint, and I don't know who wrote it. Apologies, but somebody on maybe the community tab suggested that it's too easy that Tony knows he's Spider-Man in the first place. Like he just needed a line about how he even put that together.
You also could have just set that up in the first place. Like that's part of what's clunky about it is there's no setup to it.
Like I can easily be made to buy that Tony Stark would figure that out, but like why would he be trying to? And
No, it should have just been a scene earlier on in the movie where he sees that on TV or something.
yeah. Or maybe he's got feelers out where he's got people looking for superpowered people.
Hmm. Yeah, something. Literally anything.
Anything. Ben.
Anyways, we're like entirely discussing the Spider-Man thing, like in circles.
Well, we got a super chat about it. Ben
Good, I
Vlaric,
know.
10-pound super chat. Tony Stark, we need to be held responsible. Oh, he's bringing up the same thing again. Wanda is just a kid. Keep her prisoner. Also, Tony Stark. Hey, here's this 14-year-old I recruited to fight against other superhumans. Great job, Tony. Yeah, we just talked about that. But again, I tend to think that that's, I don't know. Even if it's not intentional, I think it works.
Well, it's Steve that says Wanda's a kid. Because she's not actually a kid. She's like a legal adult. It's Steve that says that.
Oh, and I'm sorry, he's not talking about the thing at the beginning now. Now he's talking about Wanda being a kid, and yeah,
Yeah, because that was something I was going to mention earlier. Is I think it helps with his point where he's like, she's under house arrest, but in a giant compound. But then also he's like, we can't give visas to weapons of mass destruction, which is really funny.
yeah. With that argument, I'm not sure what Wanda being a kid has to do with what Tony's doing. Because
Well,
like you said, it's
what he's
Steve that
saying is
says
that he's
that.
not letting Wanda out to do things because like we got to like hold her down, but also I'm gonna go get another kid to like get into the action. But Tony's also not the one calling Wanda that.
But also, and I'm sorry, I think this is why I wasn't getting it right away. Those are false equivalencies because one's got real dangerous powers she maybe can't fully control, and the other one
Mhm.
webs people. Like the whole
Mhm.
reason he goes for Spider-Man in the first place is because he's got more defensive powers. So, like I think it's even less hypocritical than the other thing we were talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So now we're on to the twist with the super soldier thing, which I think is the best choice of the movie. Like in terms of the stuff, like it would have been a huge mistake to do the and now we have to team up to fight the actual villain for the end of this film.
Yeah, I completely agree. Although I have to say, and I think this is just my personal, like, I'm not as good at following plot as I am characters and ideas thing, Austin.
Mhm.
I think I watched this movie 2 or 3 times before I even got what was happening with the super soldier thing. Like, I think that was so not on my radar. And this is part of the reason that Zemo as a character has never appealed to me as much as he does other people, is that always was kind of just a plot device, like we talked about earlier, for me to get these characters or to get this conflict going. And so when we
Mhm.
get to there are these super soldiers, I completely on the first couple of viewings forgot about like the flashback with him and that we were with them, that we were setting that up. Like that didn't even work for me as a red herring. I just didn't even
Mhm.
know what was going on here and didn't really care because I was just focused on the the Captain America and Iron Man of it, and I just wonder if other people had that. If there's like so much going on, it's easy to ignore certain bits of it.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's also like entirely what Cap's like moving towards, but he keeps getting hit with Iron Man, so he can't like fully focus on it. But maybe, I don't know.
I'm probably just dumb. It's fine.
No, I like that it's setting up like a
I
very.
get it now.
I like that it's setting up just like a very MCU like kind of stock climax, and then they go, "Oh no,
No, that's
psych."
great. Well, and I
It's
wonder,
kind of what I talked about with Thunderbolts, but yeah. Anyways,
I wonder if they made that even more of a red herring. You know, if they pushed it even farther because Marvel Entertainment didn't want them to do it, and so like I wonder if they laid it on even thicker once they were able to do it.
yeah, maybe like a giant middle finger to you, like, no, we're not doing the thing you wanted us to do.
So so if you're watching this, we're gonna make you think that that's where it's going.
I hope
wonder.
so. That'd be great.
Let me ask you this: do you? Because this was my big reservation about Zemo when I first saw this. Do you buy? This is always the question with these kind of master manipulation plots, that he would know for sure enough that what he's doing would pit these characters against each other the way it does.
I mean, you do have like somebody that's Captain America's best friend that's also done something very like personal to Iron Man. But I don't know, I've always felt like he's just trying to get here to like kill these people, and breaking the Avengers is just kind of something that like works out while doing that.
I guess
like,
that's my question. Yeah, is that a happy accident? Like, let me walk this back for a second. He doesn't intentionally make the legislation happen, right?
No,
Like,
there are two things that just spawn out of Sokovia.
yeah. Because I think when I first saw this, I thought somehow he was responsible for that, and that seemed too easy to me. And that's
No, and I think that's why it worked. Like the
That's the
master
big place where-
manipulator thing works for me, is that he's not the one that's putting everything into place.
and I think for a long time I thought that's what it was, but it's not, right?
No, there's just issues already happening, and because of that, he can like sneak through, like, and do what he's trying to accomplish.
And so that's his why now.
Yeah, I mean, for something like a Dark Knight, like it's the same thing as they're going after the mob instead of the Joker, who's like starting at the beginning. Like it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
They're too distracted in order to see the bigger picture of.
Well, and speaking
what's
of Batman, we haven't talked much about this yet, but it's of course hilarious that this and BVS came out the same year, and retroactively BVS watches like a parody of this movie to me.
Well, this movie gets greenlit because of BVS.
So I mean, at least it's not complete coincidence that we had two Versus movies at the same time, but it's just nuts how much, higher in storytelling quality and how much more sense and actual character pathos one had over the other. Because you compare Zemo's manipulation plot to Lex's, and Lex's is exactly what I'm saying. I'm glad this isn't. And how
absolutely,
he somehow knows for sure that what he's doing is going to get Batman and Superman to go to fight at the end. It's also ostensibly about collateral damage, but this does it really thoughtfully, where it's not even because fans complained that you kept getting, I don't think that you kept getting to the end of movies and there was all this collateral damage. It was more just, this is superhero movies, and let's deconstruct this thing, where not just MCU, but like so many third acts of superhero movies are superheroes fight bad guys. There's all this damage everywhere. Like, who cleans it up? Does anybody die? Et cetera, et cetera. The opening of BVS is because people complained about collateral damage in Man of Steel, and Snyder didn't understand why they complained about it. He just knew that they did.
No,
And
and I mean that
so
collateral damage is part of the book. Like it is just
that's
inherent to
true.
Civil War as a concept.
That's true too, but the Rousseaus in their commentary talk about how they're specifically trying to subvert that third act and
Mhm.
make it about how we're always, breaking stuff at the end of these movies.
Mhm. No, and I mean that's definitely the choice with what we're doing here.
And again, that's the
We're
reason
very
that,
intentionally having no collateral damage. It's just
yeah.
three people in a silo fighting.
And again, that's the reason it has to end this way, and you just wouldn't buy the teams come together to fight the big threat. It's also the reason that you can't have anybody throw a punch at Zemo.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. No, you get the opposite with Zemo. You have Black Panther saving Zemo.
Yeah, and what's so sad about that, I mean, this is just also thoughtfully handled, Austin, is this is, by the way, my favorite action shot in the movie is just the wide with
With these
Bucky
two
and,
a-holes beating up my boy,
well, I was
I
gonna say
know.
just Bucky and Cap
It
throwing the
is
shield,
great.
showing the shield back and forth. I always thought that was cool.
No, it very much is. I just think it's also funny that it's just two people double teaming this guy after he found out that his parents were killed. But yeah, absolutely. It's a very great shot. This whole sequence is shot like really well.
Well, if Iron Man was at full power, he'd have a decent shot at the both of them. I mean, is the thing. Like, they would have to fight him like that. And of course, that's the
Mhm.
comic cover.
Yep.
So it is cool that we homage that. This does
Yeah.
a nice
Yeah, and
job
Iron
of.
Man's like maybe a little like underpowered in this movie, but that's like,
That's fair.
whatever. Like,
But I like that they've got some reverence for that material, even though I don't overall really like that material. Like it's one of the best examples of course, improving on comic material, but
mhm.
also like adapting it within the universe that you have established and like thoughtfully and intelligently using the stuff that makes sense and axing the stuff that doesn't and tweaking things and
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the way you want a lot of not great material adapted. And I mean, I think we can also agree like Civil War is good in concept. Like it's just not a great event.
and
That could have been a really good book.
And like somebody said, it's also, especially at that point in time, an ultimate premise, and it should have been done there.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of the action too, Kev, because it just made me think: are the John Wick guys still involved with this one? I think they are, because I know they do Winter Soldier, like a lot of the like action and
That
stunt
I
work.
don't know. I didn't read anything about that today.
Oh, okay, I want to say they are
But
involved with this one as well, but I can't remember.
but that would explain why some of the hand to hand stuff in this looks as good as it does. Because I really
Yeah,
like the action in
exactly.
this movie overall. I'm with you that there's some stuff that looks too CGI ish, but it's not as bad as like Black Panther and some other things.
No, and I mean I don't have it as much with like the action. Like it's I have it like in moments, with like suits and stuff, like that Black Panther suit earlier on in the film. But for the action, for the most part, like I don't really have that. It's more just like awkward green screen with effects work in this one.
So I'll finish it, or I'll go back to super chats here in a second. We're already past it, so we should talk about and kind of revisit the issue that I always had about Iron Man going after Winter Soldier, knowing that he wasn't responsible for his mother's death, because that or for his parents' death, but he says you killed my mom, because that's the thing that works for some people, doesn't work for other people. I've seen that handled so often as just in other things as just an excuse to make a dramatic beat
Mhm.
happen or to have a big
Just very
action scene.
forced.
And I always felt like that's what I was seeing with that. And I will admit that I was maybe blinded by the TV and the CW of it all, and not appreciating the breadcrumbs that we were given to get us there. I had a different feeling about it this last time I saw it, and it's not I don't think that I've just been beaten down over the years by people telling me I'm wrong about it. I think I am seeing it differently,
Mhm.
and
No, because I think it works entirely.
what here.
But go for it.
So what I saw in it this time that I didn't appreciate before is two things. First of all, I never gave it enough credit for the fact that that Tony sees on that tape Winter Soldier put his gun up to the camera just before it happens. Like, it's way more extreme, and also just Downey's performance in that scene, how intense that is. It is way different to be told this guy killed your parents than to actually see it happen and then be faced by the guy. Like, whether he's rational about it at all. This is gonna be a 3-point thing. That's the first point. The second point is Tony Stark has been trying to, the best he can, do the right thing the whole movie, even if I think he's on the wrong side. And as you said, really emotionally compromised. And at the point that all comes crumbling down at the end, and he's on opposite sides with Captain America. I want to talk about this, but I got to finish this point. And at the point where at his most vulnerable, he's finally learned the way his parents died, and that Captain America kept it a secret from him. He is back to impulsive, irrational, narcissistic Tony Stark, and he does not care about doing the right thing anymore. That's the second thing. The third thing is, I don't think he's trying to get revenge on Bucky. I think he's trying to get revenge on Captain America through Bucky. And that's the main thing that finally makes it kind of work for me in a way it didn't before, is if Captain America's not there, I don't know that he's as intense about it. I think he's more angry about the lie than he is about... It's not generically Bucky killed his parents, it's Captain America didn't tell him about it. And his argument of this whole time has been about, telling the truth and being above board. Mm-hmm. And in that way, that is about hypocrisy, Austin.
It's multiple things. It's Tony's already in a bad place at the beginning of this movie. You have this issue that spawns out of Bucky, and not only that, but Captain America is entirely taking Bucky's side, completely ignoring Tony, from his perspective, and he's we're good friends and you're completely going off in your own. Tony the entire time is okay, we're not going to go hard on them. We could easily take them out, but we're gonna just come in and we're gonna take them as easily as we can, not just wreck them. His best friend then gets crippled in that fight while they have the gloves on, and then he goes, he realizes what the actual issue is, so he's okay, well, I will help you out. And then he rocks up, and then on top of that, you have Cap's lie that he's known about this whole time, and I think Cap's entirely in the wrong. He's just awful in that. And the movie knows it. It's not it's saying.
Well, that's why he drops the shield.
He was right in doing
because
that.
He admits,
exactly.
In this
when
moment,
I
am no longer Captain America.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. So all of this compounds on top of that, and on top of that, Tony doesn't know Bucky. As easy as it is to say, oh well, he was mind controlled. Cap's been defending this person this whole time, and look at all of this awful stuff. That's just part of it.
Yeah,
and it's entirely an emotional I'm breaking down. We've gone too far. The camel's back is officially broken.
And regardless of whether Winter Soldier was in his right mind, this might be to Tony Stark somebody that is just beyond saving. Mm-hmm. I'm not even looking at a human being at this point. I'm looking at the weapon that killed my parents. That. Mm-hmm. That's how he's looking.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
It. Which is again thematically interesting because the side he's chosen is the side that, in the wrong hands, would make the Avengers into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even then, Cap's immediate response is also just to beat the crap out of Iron Man. Like,
Yeah.
he's not really trying to dissuade him all that much. Like, he gives up on that pretty quickly.
No, they've just totally lost both of themselves at that point.
It's done, yeah.
Yeah, I've
Like,
always, and I probably talked about this before, but I've always loved the shield into the arc reactor because of what it does for the ongoing heart motif.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That he's literally breaking Iron Man's heart. When I also love that both, like all three of those men in that situation lose the thing that makes them, their like hero alternative. Bucky loses his War Machine arm, or War Machine, Winter Soldier arm. Cap loses his shield, and Tony loses his arc
His arc
reactor.
reactor, yeah, and the arc reactor has
All three of them are broken by the end.
the arc reactor has represented since that first movie Tony Stark discovering his compassion, his altruism, and Captain America in ignoring his breaks the symbol of that. I and I really like that image. We also haven't talked about how interesting and cool and dramatic uh, his like Captain America's history with Howard Stark is, and like how integral or like how intrinsically related their histories are, and that feels like a thing. Again, it's just really thoughtfully accomplished. That feels like a thing that just should not work and should look way too contrived and easy, and it doesn't. And it's on a storytelling level, it's fascinating to me that even works. That you have like Howard Stark looking at Captain America as the kid that he wished he had, and he has to settle for Tony Stark, and Tony Stark is jealous of that, and the shield represents what like kind of that idea, like the relationship that he wishes that he had with Howard Stark and can't have, and that Howard sort of kind of had with Captain America. All that, and then bringing that back around at the end with my father made that shield. Like that's just like jealous rage at that point.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's something that I wish that the two Avengers films before this actually dealt with. Like, I don't think we have enough of that there, but in terms of this movie, I think it works. And like with, Captain America, First Avenger, and just I guess Iron Man 2, like with dealing with the Howard Stark on his side.
Yeah, it's maybe a
Uh,
little late, but it's nice that we finally got to some of that stuff.
No, in a way, I feel like it almost works better in this one because we know they have a history, and like if you're just watching this, you can go, oh, like I'm not necessarily thinking about what's actually in the first two Avengers movies between them.
I haven't mentioned this yet, but I also think this is one of the better MCU scores, and I don't think it gets a lot of credit for that. I like the Winter Soldier score more, but the main theme with this I think is pretty good, and it just like the story, it does a really good job balancing that darker and lighter tone.
hmm Yeah, I don't know. I've always seen the score to both of these as like kind of generic, but I've never really listened to them outside of the movies.
I did too up until this week, and then I paid a lot more attention to it. I was like, yeah, no, there's some nice stuff here.
Yeah, for sure.
Pros and cons guy, $2 super chat. Cap, whose side would you join? I mean, I think I made that pretty clear. I'm definitely more on the virtue versus the end based ethics thing. Especially in this universe, like, what could possibly go wrong, Austin? If you go
Everything, Bubsy.
if you go if you go with the government side, like
I'm gonna go on Iron Man's side because Iron Man is much cooler than Captain America and would totally win in a fight, even though he didn't.
even though you basically said Iron Man is the villain of this movie and Captain America is obviously on the right side.
Hey, I said he's the antagonist. That's a different thing.
Okay, but apart from this stream, I have in the past heard you say Captain America is obviously on the right side.
No, I've said he's the main character of this film. It is his film. Iron Man is his villain. He's the antagonist.
No, that's what you said here, but I swear to
No,
God,
that's what
I've
I've
heard you
always
say.
said.
Oh, really?
I can say that he is the villain to Captain America because this is Captain America's film. Yeah.
No, I get all that, but I just thought personally you always said there's a clear side here.
I mean, I guess to a degree. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think this movie's like enough about the Sokovia Accords, and for the better. So like, I also kind of don't really care about their argument. Like, I'm much more into the like intimate side of it.
Yeah,
Like, I always feel like there's not enough of either side really for me to have an opinion.
Look, the viewers have a right to know, okay? Chewbacca's Lover, $10 super chat. I feel like Cap's side depends on you knowing it's a fiction and that he will always do the right thing because he's not a real person. Put it in a real life context, and I think it becomes really silly. Well, it's okay for these things to be somewhat allegorical, and I don't think it's like too heavy allegorical in the sense that there's nothing else to it than that. Like, it is really character driven. But yes, I mean, it is a fiction, sure. And the movie is... The Russos always made a big deal out of this being the first movie in the MCU that really, really requires you to have seen other stuff before it. And they just stop caring about introducing the characters for new viewers. Like, there's no recap stuff here. Hardly.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the first film where they kind of go... like either you're caught up or you're not. Like, we can't catch everybody up with everything. I remember them making a big point of that at the time.
Yeah, which is smart because otherwise the movie's 3 hours long. And I still say for all the characters it's having to juggle and actually giving us some downtime, it's shockingly economical.
Yeah, and I think that's like a strength that the Russos get from being in like sitcoms before this, like big ensemble cast sitcoms where like you have, you know, a character that maybe can only have 30 seconds to get an idea across. Like, they're very economical in that way, and I think that's why the Russos worked better under Marvel than they do post that. Is I think the Russos are like very much the type of director that I think work better under a like showrunner type setup, where like they don't have to come in and come up with everything and be like the entire grounding force. Like, they just have to come in and go, okay, like, how do we take the things that we have to, like, how do we add to that, how do we build on that, and on top of that, build on things that have already come before us too. I think that's why they succeeded with these in a way that they haven't since.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Real quick, the other thing I would say about Chewbacca's Lover Super Chat is I think enough context, again, not to get circular, but enough context with this universe has been established that it just is different enough from the real world, arguably, like, at least in my opinion. I mean, you go back to Avengers, and, like, not just with the Hydra reveal with Winter Soldier, where that's, like, of course, a big secret, and a lot of people involved in the government don't even realize that there's, control from a decades-old evil foreign force. You go back to Avengers, and when well, I guess they do bring up the Security Council and all of that, but you go back to that movie, and as soon as the government gets their hand on the Tesseract, they want to make weapons with it, and it's just really clear from Captain America's perspective that he's not in the same world that he once was, and that he can't trust the authorities he used to be able to trust. So I just think it's really understandable in all of that context when you start looking at like superpowers and like super science and fantasy stuff, that it's even scarier to trust the government than maybe it is in the real world when you have all the supernatural stuff now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and he just came back in and said like it's more so that like we know Captain America, we know he won't abuse his powers, so it's not scary. But in the real world, it would be. I think at that point,
Oh,
it's like
sure.
saying Superman is scary because of his power, but like we know Superman isn't scary because he's Superman. Like I think that's just a gimme.
And to be fair, the movie addresses that a little bit in having Captain America not only make a huge mistake in this movie or before this movie in
Mhm.
lying to Tony Stark, but also in losing himself as much as he does at the end. Like he's
Mhm.
accidentally
Yeah.
making the government side argument for him, even though I'm
Mhm.
personally more on his side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's like the worst thing between both characters is like what he does with Tony's parents.
Well, and that's why even though you're right that it stops being about the Sokovian Accords, it doesn't stop being about the argument. And
Hmm.
I really
Yeah.
like that about it. And that's where I think the Rousseaus are not crazy when they say, I. Or I should say, I think they've maybe succeeded at what they set out to do in making the argument a difficult one to call. Like I always forget about this end credit scene,
Yeah, I remember being so hyped that, like, oh man, we finally have the spider signal.
and then I don't think they ever did anything with it.
I think he also uses it in his room in Homecoming, and that's it.
So what is it with Spider-Man movies with end credit scenes in rooms? Because we do that in at the end of Spider-Verse too.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah,
I thought the end credits of that was just the '60s Spider-Man.
or maybe it's like a mid credits, but it's after the movie where Gwen comes back from her universe through a portal, like in his bedroom.
Oh, okay. I don't even know about that one.
You know, Spider-Man will return,
They should have said
just like the Ten
Aunt May.
Rings.
No, the spider signal will return. I was gonna say Aunt May, but no, the spider signal will return is a better one.
I I don't know how that's already over. I feel like there's stuff that I, I feel like we got
I feel
bogged
like we could
down
start
with
the
certain
movie
things.
over and have like
Yeah.
a whole more like a whole other discussion.
Um, how do you feel about Nick Fury not being included in this at all?
um, no, I like that Nick Fury's not in this film. It's just that I think everything around Nick Fury with being in Age of Ultron is really awkward. Like I just feel like he
No, it
should
is.
kind of disappear after Winter Soldier, and maybe we can have him doing like his own thing. But I don't think he should be involved in this.
Yeah, it felt weird at the time just because I would have thought that he'd have an opinion about this and show up with it. What would be interesting about having him is because of the Hydra reveal and everything he's been through. It's kind of hard to tell where he'd land. I I think he'd be more likely at this point to be on Cap's side, but there is an argument both directions.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
That would, of course,
Uh,
make it more about that conflict, and
mhm.
you don't really need him in the big scene where they're. Oh, I also forgot to mention that when the two sides start running at each other at the airport, I'm always reminded of the opening scene to the X-Men cartoon.
Oh yeah, there you go. Somebody's made that edit, right?
Oh, I'm sure, because it looks a lot like that.
Na, na. Avengers.
Real quick, the other thing I was going to say about the title is, like I said, I wouldn't want Avengers in it. I don't think that's appropriate. I used to say just call it like Marvel Civil War. Everybody's going to know what it is, and people like I don't think it mattered what you called this, because the advertising made it made a big deal out of a bunch of Avengers characters being in this. So like whether you see it more as a Captain America movie or not, like a lot of people went to see this that maybe wouldn't have cared about Winter Soldier because Iron Man was in it. I would at this point. I said this to Austin off camera. I'm curious to know what other people think about this, but There was supposed to be a different story for this movie originally, and it was, remind me what it was, Austin. It was something about like
The Serpent Society, and there was going to be a whole thing where they like mind control a town, and
yeah, they
I
basically
think Black
turn
Widow
people
was
into.
also supposed to be mind controlled.
Oh, I didn't know
Like
about
it was like
that.
a whole
I
thing.
just knew about like uh, having zombie like civilians that Captain America would have to fight, and uh, the difficult like the conflict for him would be he's got to fight regular people.
Yeah, and I think they decided against that because they were like, "Oh, that's not big enough for a Captain America movie." I
Yeah.
think it's part of why they didn't do that.
Well, the Rousseau said that uh, the script they were originally working on before they had the Civil War concept, the whole thing ends with a showdown at like the stock market, and they were like, "We just can't make this movie. like this, it's a terrible
It's
idea."
gonna kill our
They
careers.
said, "There's nothing else going on. It's just the stock market." Like,
Oh yeah, they were gonna do the Mad Bomb story. Tyler says.
yes, that's the thing I read about. But anyway, I bring that up to say I kind of wish that Captain America had gotten a third movie, whatever it was, before this, like that story or some other story, just some other Captain America adventure, and then this movie would have both of their names in it and would just be kind of like Captain America and Iron Man 4. Because my main issue with the title is just having the that Civil War idea with only one character's name in it just like breaks my brain. Like it just
I
doesn't
remember
make
the
sense as a title.
time.
Captain America, Civil War. It's like what's the civil? Who's he fighting? Like it's a weird title.
I remember at the time people thought it was going to be like a two-parter, and it was going to be Captain America Civil War, Iron Man Civil War.
Oh, interesting.
Obviously, that's not what happened. But
It's better title than Dawn of Justice.
yeah, I mean, I feel like everything is a better title than Dawn of Justice. That is the title to one of those like little kid books that like come out before the movie.
Yeah, because I always said it
Like,
sounded like a direct-to-video movie, but you're right. It also sounds like a Golden Books title.
yeah, like your movie is called World's Finest, and you have one book explaining how Batman came to be in that world. It's called Batman Begins, and then another book that's called Batman and Superman: Dawn of Justice, and it's about like both of their worldviews, and they're the books that sum up like going into that movie for 2-year-olds.
Robert says some people who don't like this movie think it's more convoluted than it actually is. I mean, to be fair, I think at one time I also thought that, and I've always really liked this movie. But I really had it in my head that somehow Zemo makes the Accords happen, and that's not what it is.
No, exactly. No, I mean there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think like oddly that helps it be less contrived in a weird way.
This whole commentary is just me showing how much I used to be a dope. And what's funny is, like I said, I've always really loved this movie, and I had my best viewing of it this week. And like understanding some things that never sat right with me. I think I like it more now than I ever did. Because and again, I'm not just saying that because people disagree with me. I have, because like for years I fought people on Iron Man going after Bucky at the end because I just thought it was the real typical forced, like he's got to have like just revenge for the sake of revenge. It's really developed up to that point, and I did not give it credit for that. Like I will completely concede this point. I think it works.
No, it's great. I mean, just that whole sequence is great. It's like very visceral too. Like we kind of talked over it, but there's that great moment when he rips the helmet off, and Tony's like fully prepared for him to like decapitate him with the shield, and just that whole scene is very tense.
Dan Schneider, if I another super chat. Fun fact: the unmade BVS movie or Batman vs Superman movie that would have come out in 2004 also involved Lex Luthor manipulating them into fighting each other. I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things that kind of line up between that original version and the movie we ultimately got. But I mean, that tends to happen with this kind of stuff where there's just kind of ideas that probably producers have in their heads that end up making their way into projects one way or the other.
Because with that specifically, everything about that was just so counterintuitive to me that, and obviously there's a lot of counterintuitive, like stupid fanficky ideas in early drafts for a lot of this stuff, uh, but that just seemed like so, uh, like such a Snyder idea. It's like, oh well, if we're gonna have them both, of course they've got to fight each other, and of course that's got to be the whole movie. And of course, if you're gonna have Lex Luthor, he has to manipulate that to happen somehow. The whole thing has to be like a giant misunderstanding. So I am a little bit surprised to know that that was in an early draft.
And they gotta team up at the end to fight a guy that Batman couldn't fight. I always thought it was a weird. Like I remember when they announced that, I was like, okay, so the end of that movie is obviously Lex creates something that's like really powerful for Superman to fight, while Batman goes off and takes down Lex, and that's like way more logical than what the actual climax of that movie is.
But then I guess I shouldn't be that surprised because when your idea starts from something as superficial as, well, let's finally settle the age-old question of who would win in that fight. Like, I guess it's not surprising that the very premise ends up sounding like kids playing with action figures. Like, the idea of Lex manipulating them probably just comes from, well, we want to have a villain in the movie. It's not just Batman and Superman fighting each other, and they've got to have a reason to fight because they're both heroes. So it's the cheap mind control thing, right? Like you can't have heroes fighting each other unless somebody mind controls one or both of them. So it's just that.
Well, we talked about with Spider-Man with this, where it's like, okay, like they want to have Spider-Man in this movie, so we have to like work backwards on how to make that happen in this overall film that we've made. BVS, they're working backwards from how do we make a movie where Batman hits Superman over the head with a sink, and it's like, okay, well now we have to make like a whole movie just to get to that.
Dude, in working backward from that, and then I promise we'll get off this. In working backwards from not the conclusion you want to get to with the movie, but just the basic premise of the film, you're contriving everything all the way down to the geographic location of the cities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, your Metropolis and Gotham would not be right next to each other if you were going to have Batman and Superman fight the whole movie. I say the whole movie. I mean, that's, it's not the whole movie, but...
No, it's, like, just one scene, and it's the most one-sided fight in all of film history.
Hey, there's that part where they have a 3-word verbal confrontation.
No, I remember seeing that the first time, and I was like, okay, there's no way in which Superman can, like, pummel Batman and he just gets back up. So I'm like, they're going to contrive a way for him to not be hitting Batman. So, like, going into that fight, I was like, okay, I'm going to count how many times Superman hits Batman in that fight, and it's 3. Over the course of, like, a 15-minute fight.
Sorry, I was distracted because OK Great said something hilarious when we were in the middle of the what you call the double team fight. OK Great said 2 World War II veterans beating up an orphan.
That's what I mean. That's what's funny about it. It's like, oh, by the way, I killed your parents, and then they just kick his ass.
Ben Barrett, 10-pound super chat. Everyone completely missed the point. Peter knows damn well it's episode 5. It's on Hoth. It's AT-ATs. Except because he's embarrassed and doesn't want to come across as a nerdy kid, he downplays it. I guess that's possible. I never thought of that
Maybe
read
I
on
think
it.
there needs to be like a little bit more of a hint to that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think it like fully comes across, but if that's your read of it, that's fine. I feel like I need something else to kind of get that across.
that's
Even if you have like a line earlier, like maybe even he's like joking around about that with somebody when he's walking in and that when he's introduced, maybe like something.
yeah, like everybody's reactions to it makes me suspect that's not the intent with it, but
Mhm.
if you want that headcanon, like I can't argue against it. It could be the reason, but you're right. There's just not enough to go on.
No, I would just like the line itself is fine. I would just tweak that old movie and the walkie thingies. Like tweak those two phrases, words, and like I'm fine with that as a line.
Or at the very least, don't have him have Star Wars things in his room in a later movie.
Or have him kind of
Because he could be nerdy
like
and not into Star Wars.
yeah, no, that's
I
true.
mean, he could
Or
be more
just
of a
have
Trek
him
kid.
say it in like more of an embarrassed way. Like maybe have him like pause for a second where he's like, "Hey, remember that old movie?" Like something like that, maybe to kind of emphasize. Like he also doesn't deliver it like he's embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly. I still say it reads like they're just trying to get in the head of a 15-year-old. Dan Schneider, $10 super chat. Wait a minute. No, I have not read this one yet. He's still talking about the '04 version. In the 2004 version, Batman and Superman already knew each other and were old friends. So they did. So they did that old dynamic, but with Batman and Superman, where like they were good friends turned enemies. Okay, Batman comes out of retirement to go after the Joker, a clone by Lex. What? Who kills his wife? And Superman is trying to stop Batman from killing the Joker. The Joker's been dead for years, and him being a clone is a twist at the end. Well, this sounds terrible.
That is true.
Yeah, I've
That
never
is
heard all that.
true. I forgot that he was a clone, but I did know about all of that, where Batman's trying to stop Superman from killing
Good
the
lord.
Joker.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get to mini reviews, and
Yeah.
I'll scroll up a little and try to read a couple more comments here and there if I can, because we didn't hit hardly any pre-written things as we went. That was a whirlwind, and
It went by like way too fast.
that's what I was having. I was really distracted by it, and apologies if we got stuck on a couple of topics and we couldn't get off of them. But there's just a lot to mine in that.
Oh, there we go. Oh, we don't have any on Patreon.
Okay, well then I'll have to read all of these myself because there are 7 on Patreon. So let me go ahead and blow through these real quick. Thanks everybody who left tweet length reviews. Daniel Davis, again, this is on Patreon. You can get this with the $5 tier, and we put out prompts for each of these, and we read these on air. Daniel Davis, first time watching this in years. Oh, I'm doing this backwards. This is most recent to least recent. I still have a lot of umbrage with the Rousseau's bland visual style. However, even with that problem in mind, the movie as a whole is quite watchable. I appreciate that they make the story so personal for both Cap and Tony, and the film's set pieces are entertaining. It's so heads and shoulders above the other superhero battle film from the same year, Batman vs. Superman. It's sometimes astonishing to realize they were only a few months apart. Superhero. How do you feel about, quote, bland visual style, Austin?
Oh, I mean, I agree 100%. I do think they have like kind of a bland style. I think it works fine for what they're doing. Like, I just don't think that they're um, like auteurs or like anything like that. But I also think they're a huge step up from Whedon. So like at the same time, I'm also comparing it to that, and especially if you were to look at it as like an Avengers thing, like I think it looks so much better than either of his films. So like it is kind of cool to have that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just either my standards are too low or I'm not enough of a I don't know how to put it except just to say a visual person because I never had any issue with their style. I
I
kind
think it's
of
just their colors are kind of muted. Like I think it's mostly just that.
Yeah. Well, and
But they're not like bad or anything.
I agree with that. I kind of have the same thing with I'll just say with Winter Soldier that I have with Thunderbolts, where it's real muted, and I think it's just right for the material.
Hmm.
This I could see the argument that it maybe should be a little lighter, even if some of the material is even darker than stuff that's in Winter Soldier. Only because of all the different perspectives that you're having, where it's like, what are you really saying with all of it looking like that? I almost wish, given that we've got two sides here, we had a couple of color palettes.
Well, I think too, especially when you get into the like airport battle, like Iron Man's colors come off more of like a dark purple than like a bright red. Like it's just all the colors just very muted. I guess they pop a little bit more for Spider-Man, but outside of that,
One more super chat from Dan
it's just
Schneider.
kind of
He's still talking about that '04 BVS movie. He says it didn't seem that.
put this in for when we do BVS.
Yeah, well, he wants to fill us in on this, I guess. It didn't seem that bad. It was really dark. In it, Batman retires because he's basically losing his mind and becoming like his villains. It seemed cool, and it does sound like they looked at a lot of that for BVS because I mean, you've got the later stage Batman in that seems to be kind of losing it, and I realized that they're at least ostensibly looking at Dark Knight Returns for some of that, but
Mhm,
it's not a retired Batman.
mhm. No, that's true. But like both are working with an older Batman, I guess. It's similar in that way.
James Egan, yeah, I guess what's blowing my mind about this is that the idea of Dark Knight Returns being the big inspiration, uh, just fundamentally to put Batman and Superman together on the big screen. Like it never occurred to me that that goes back that far. And then I
It's
guess I
probably like
shouldn't.
that's the
I was just gonna say I guess I
go ahead.
shouldn't be surprised by that because one of the big things. Because Dark Knight Returns is so popular that anybody thinks of with Batman and Superman both in something is Dark Knight Returns. But
Mhm,
my mind always more quickly went to team up movie than versus movie, and so I never think of that.
mhm. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that's probably just the most mainstream book of the two of them, and I feel like at the same time, like yeah, team up is what our minds go to. I'm kind of not surprised that like Hollywood execs are going, okay, Batman versus Superman is what the idea is. Like people want
Hmm.
to see these two come together to like fight. Like it's like the Godzilla versus King Kong type thing.
And it's got a just real clear formula built in, right? They come
Mhm.
like they meet each other, they have a big fight, they they get over it, they shake hands, and then they go fight the real threat. Like that's
And then
what
Superman
it's supposed to be.
dies.
And once again to bring it back to this, that's what the studio that's what Marvel wanted them to do with this, and so
Mhm.
that mentality was still very alive and well.
Yeah, I wonder because I know Millar was part of that group.
Oh, that's right.
I wonder I wonder if he had any involvement in the Ultimate Alliance 2 game because that adapts Civil War and does that where it goes, okay, like here's like the villain that is the reason why Civil War happened, and now we got to fight them, and oh, like everything's okay now. It all worked out. I I wonder like if he's was involved, like maybe he kind of saw that as like the way to do Civil War, um, in a way where you don't have the comics to like constantly build this out.
Well, I think it's really
But I don't know.
sad that uh 9 years ago the Russos are insisting on making the least formulaic movie they can get away with and it still be mainstream enough to get a lot of butts in seats. And the big complaint we've had with Phase 4 and 5 is how samey a lot of those are, and how they keep some of them anyway keep kind of doing the same thing over and over again. They've got the real predictable third acts. Uh,
Mhm.
it's just sad that the MCU has that reputation, given uh, some of the ways some of these movies have subverted that. And I think with people that weren't paying close enough attention to them, even back then, they had that reputation where it's like those are just those mainstream throwaway, dime a dozen superhero movies. And I'm like, I don't know, Martin Scorsese. Like, you might not have loved Civil War, but you didn't watch it. I mean, there's no chance you saw that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I also think, there is a place for like that kind of roller coaster filmmaking and being like not being dumb. Like you can be
Yeah.
uh smart for what you are, like in terms of that. I don't
Well,
know.
and trying to avoid a formula can sometimes lead to just another formula. Uh,
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
worry, a
absolutely.
worry I've had, like you're right. There's room for it. Just give us variety, right? Like it's also nice to have every now and again a good classic superhero movie. Uh,
I think that's where Disney is at as like an animation house where I feel like
yeah,
they for like the last 10 years have been too focused on trying to subvert a lot of their tropes that we always think of, like to the point where it would now be like a trope to just make like a more classic Disney film. It's that kind of a thing,
yeah.
right?
We'd be
Like,
surprised if we did that.
yeah, exactly.
That's the worry I keep having whenever people, uh, and all respect to you, Austin, because this is going to sound like I'm coming at you with thunderbolts, and I'm not. But I,
It's okay. I'm ready to be hurt.
but this is the worry I have sometimes when people will praise a recent superhero movie for having a smaller third act or for not having a big fight at the end. Is like, well, we can't make it to where you're not allowed to ever do that again.
Mhm.
I worry about that
Yeah.
because sometimes I think you'll get a pretty good one and people will have this knee jerk reaction. And again, I'm admitting I was wrong. Knee jerk in the way I used to with the ending of this with Tony Stark going after Bucky. It's like I just had a knee jerk. I saw that too much and I just assume there's not anything behind it because why else would you do that? But you just want that ending, right? We can't say light in the sky always bad. Like I mean, it usually is, but you might have a decent one. Like every now and again, you need a good light in the sky at the end of a superhero movie. For
Hmm.
it, for
Well,
instance.
it's like the faceless army thing. Like, is it inherently bad? No, you can make that work, but at the same time, like we've taken it like kind of too far. Where like I'm kind of done with that.
Yeah.
Um, like I had that with Ultron, where after the first movie, I was like, why is your climax like the exact same as the first film? Uh, I would have changed that completely, but that's whatever.
Because he made them too close together and he needed a break, and they should have given him that or had someone else direct it. Yeah.
And for me, because just don't like weed. but yeah, no, that's fair.
Victor, one of my favorite MCU films. I'm reading more of these tweet with reviews. One of my
Yeah.
favorite MCU films, and the strongest argument for what a shared universe can do that other franchises can't. A story like this, and that's a really good point, with this many key characters and which builds so heavily on what came before it, would never work as a standalone film. And yet, this movie still manages to feel quite focused. However, like almost every other MCU film, the needs of the larger franchise prevent this from having a truly cathartic, status quo shattering ending, which ultimately holds it back from being a masterpiece. But it's still a great example of how comic movies can tell meaningful stories while still delivering honest to God cinematic spectacle. Plus, it might just be Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance to date, which is no small feat. Superhero.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like I said, like in the middle, I feel like the lasting effects of this movie really depend on what you're looking at. Like the emotional ones, I think, do really impact, but the Sokovia Accords themselves, not really. We kind of just hand wave those away eventually.
Yeah, and maybe that should bother me a little bit more than it does. But at the same time, we also don't do a lot of like straight up Avengers things after this, and
Yeah, and
it's
like you
kind of
said, it's
more
not
about
the
that
same as the
team.
Superhero Registration Act.
Yeah, Carl Maxey, good example of honoring the source material and elevating it. The movie reinvigorated the debate about freedom versus security and which matters more and kept it as an open discussion without lecturing the audience. Zemo is a brilliant villain that has stayed consistent in the MCU. My only issue is blaming the Avengers for everything when most incidents weren't caused by them 4 out of 5. Yeah, you want to address that real quick? Because I remember at the time thinking that some of the examples were a bit of a stretch, and it's been so long I cannot remember why I thought that.
Like just in terms of those specific examples being their fault for collateral damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like they're reacting to it. Like, so you do have kind of both sides in that. Like, there's probably going to be collateral damage either way for certain things. But also at the same time, like they're not especially concerned in the moment. Like, I remember at the time thinking, oh, they like make collateral damage a big part of the Civil War climax, where we got to like get everybody off of the Sky City. But at the same time, like all of that still is Tony's fault at the end of the day. And then you have something like Avengers, where they are just reacting to the situation. But that's also, I guess, maybe more so to their point, like they are, working under Shield in that place. Like maybe you could see that as an example where like they would be more so, I guess, in that situation.
Yeah, I guess the question is how much of that the audience is supposed to buy into, and how much of it
Mhm.
is an excuse for Ross to do what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely an element of that. Like Ross is a shady character.
I mean, there's clearly a little bit of spin with it. Like
Hmm.
the Avengers could come back and go, "Okay, we're responsible for some of this, but there's a certain amount of unfortunate civilian collateral that you're going to have in a war zone.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah,
no
exactly.
possible way we can save everybody, and the people we like he's got to break it. I'm not saying we should have had this in the scene, but Ross would have to break it down even further and go, here are the places where we saw you specifically being careless that got people killed, versus here was some debris that you weren't able to get under on time. Because those are different
Mhm.
issues.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, with what they use specifically, with Avengers, it's not so much the alien stuff, it's like the Hulk bursts through a building and like debris falls down on people, I think is the shot they make for that. So like that makes sense in terms of that.
Well, and then
And then
here's what's hilarious about that, though, because I meant
mhm,
to bring this up while we were looking at it. The argument there is about an Avenger that is not there anymore, and then Ross comes back later and complains that they don't know where he is.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because he says something like, if I lost, a nuke, I would be responsible for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that. So I'm just thinking this out
I
in the
mean, that makes
moment.
sense.
Like,
Like the Hulk
I
is
guess
like a
that does make
dangerous
sense.
threat, and they, just let him go away, if
In
you
fact,
will.
I guess that example is better because he says that later. Now that I'm
Hmm.
thinking about it, because
It's
at first
weirder
it's
that he
like, well,
can't
Hulk's not even
play.
here. Like,
It's weirder that he can't play footage of Incredible Hulk, but I think that's just the awkwardness of that film.
yeah, but they're. I mean, they're also not the Avengers yet at that point, and
Mhm. No, but it's the same. Like this is, under this happened, collateral damage with you guys, even if it's not them, like the Avengers
well,
specifically.
yeah, but the Hulk wasn't even acting as a superhero at that time. I just don't think that that would even be a good example.
Mhm.
And Ross was also chasing him as that was happening. Like, he
Mhm.
probably
It
doesn't
is like,
want to even draw attention to that, but
yeah, I mean, probably, but like he is an Avenger and like destroyed Harlem. Like at the same time, didn't have to pay for that.
well, that's true, I guess. Chewbacca's Lover, it's better than the comic, even though I think Iron Man is clearly in the right. And, oh, interesting. And Captain America has no argument. I like that this, he's really on about that. I like that this doesn't throw either party under the bus, and they are still clearly friends, unlike in the comic. I rate it hero. Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, but the biggest thing this has over the comic is I like these people. I don't
Yeah,
like
well, we didn't
most of
immediately
the
kill
people
Cap after this.
I don't like most of the people in the book, and I especially don't like how they're drawn.
Mhm.
They just have really creepy cartoon faces in that.
It's what, Steve McNiven, I think.
I forget who drew that, but I just don't like what the face. Some of the action's great. I don't like what the faces look like in that at all. Joe Turner, fine, but a step down from Winter Soldier. The conflict is toothless and often impersonal due to being overstuffed with characters, and it doesn't even really feel like Steve's movie. So he just disagrees with everything you said. Still, well made, well acted, a big step up from the comic hero.
Oh, that reminds me,
Yeah.
because one of the other ones brought up Zemo, and we didn't talk too much about him, but his family stuff, like the phone call thing that he has, is a really good device. That's really impactful, I think.
It is. Yeah, we didn't talk enough about that.
I also like that, now that he's accomplished his goal, he deletes the message as he's about to kill himself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. And his choice to try to commit suicide there is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he's accomplished what he set out to do. He has no reason to live anymore. That was always his game plan. I mean, like you said, everything he wanted to happen happened up to his getting stopped with the suicide and getting taken in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, and then you get that great moment at the end where Ross is like, "Oh, or not Ross. What is the name of the CIA guy from Black Panther?"
It's also Ross, but no relation.
Okay, so it is also Ross. Okay,
Ross.
I said it. I said that, and then I was like, "No, it can't also be Ross."
It's so
That's
weird. They
weird.
introduced another character named Ross that's no relation.
Okay, that is strange.
I always have to remind myself that he was introduced here. I always forget him in this movie.
Well, he's got like 3 lines. Yeah, like I always felt like it was kind of weird that he was here. But yeah, he's got that really great moment where he's like, "Oh, was it all worth it?" Like at the end of the day, that you lost, and Zemo's like, "Did I?" It's a really good moment too.
Justin Hayes, it reminds me. It remains. I'm getting tired. It remains one of the best superhero films to date, with a phenomenal balance of the fun comic book action fans love to see, weighed against an earnest and riveting conflict between Tony and Steve. My only complaint is it could have been easily retooled to omit Zemo and form a bit tighter narrative. Definitely the best Avengers movie, legend. And I don't know, maybe I'm just drinking Kool-Aid here, Austin, because I'm getting to a point where I don't see how you take Zemo out of this. Even though I'm not finding him as compelling as a lot of other people are. And don't get me wrong, like I think the performance is fantastic. I think I like not knowing his motivation until the very end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like that you get that call and you don't know what that is until later.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think you need, if not him, you would need somebody to manipulate Winter Soldier or manipulate Bucky to get back to being Winter Soldier, because otherwise you don't get, like I said, the cool thematic idea of or the symbol of Winter Soldier as the whole conflict. Like you gotta have that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't think we really mentioned this at all, but it's also, I think, really important that we're talking about the collateral damage to civilians, that the Avengers are causing, and the Avengers get taken out by just a civilian.
I missed another Dan Schneider super chat about 04 BVS. So I've got to read this now as well, and I want to thank him for making us stretch this past 2 a.m. It also apparently $10 super chat from Dan Stein, but thanks for the support tonight, man. I appreciate it. It also apparently had a scene where Superman stops Middle Eastern terrorists and stops the crowd from attacking them, and gives a speech about how revenge is wrong and would make us as bad as them.
You gotta do better, Senator. There's also a James Egan one, but we can tackle that after you're done with the
Is there another
tweet
one
length
that
reviews.
I missed?
Yeah, because that one's about Doomsday and Secret Wars, so we can like always tack that on
Yes.
at the end.
Let me finish that. I've just got one more from Michael Martin here. He says the villain is
Yeah.
weak and forgettable, only there to set the events of the plot in motion. See, there's like a civil war happening even with these. Like it's real
But all
polarizing.
of them are on the good side. It's just level
Everybody
of good.
likes them, but they like different things and they dislike different things.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
says, however, the conflict between Steve and Tony is great, with Tony trying to constantly bend over backwards to keep the Avengers together, only to break against Steve's immovable principles. It also helps that they started their views on government in the MCU from the other's endpoint and are coming to a head there. 4 out of 5. Yeah, and I made that point earlier.
Hmm.
So clearly I agree.
Faux show, faux show.
Thanks for the tweet length reviews, guys. James Egan, 799 Australian. Are you guys concerned for Doomsday and Secret Wars based on Rizzo's post Endgame movies? I've not seen any of them, so I'm not concerned about it based on that. I'm concerned about it based on the things that I more and more am not really caring for with Endgame, just how desperate it seems to bring them back when I don't know that they're going to have anything left to say, and the the after credits that they directed for Thunderbolts. These are the things I'm concerned about.
Exactly, and the whole Downey Doom of it all. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I've seen all of their post Endgame movies, and they're all just very bland. Like, I don't know, they're kind of nothing. But I hope that Woody Harrelson comes back as Mr. Peanut in Avengers Doomsday as like a communist revolutionary Mr. Peanut, like he is in the Electric State, because that would be glorious.
I don't know what made me
Um,
think of this, but one of the Russos makes a good joke in the commentary toward the beginning of the movie, claiming that all of the Russian words that you have to say to activate the Winter Soldier are upcoming Marvel movies, and I really appreciated that they said that.
that's pretty funny.
Because me and a bunch of other
Uh,
people were like, did they throw Homecoming in there because that's coming out? And that was their way of saying that that was a complete coincidence. But I thought it was really funny. They were
yeah.
like, no, these are all going to be titles of upcoming Marvel movies.
Oh man, I cannot wait for Black Panther Freight Train or Freight Car or whatever that
Freight
one is.
car?
That's that's gonna be a great movie.
Yeah, the rest of them aren't
um,
coming to me right now.
in Avengers Doomsday, when Spider-Man, when he meets Doctor Doom, and it's like, oh man, it's Downey, like it's, like, Mr. Stark, is that you? Uh, Robert Downey Jr. will go, hey kid, remember that really old movie Face Off? And then he puts on his Doctor Doom mask.
We didn't talk about Thor not being in this or Doctor Strange not being in this.
Oh yeah. Um, like, what about it?
Just like whether or not that was
Just the right choice. I mean, with
it's a
Doctor
problem.
Strange,
Yeah.
like, I'm glad that we didn't introduce him here. That's a good choice. With Thor,
Oh, that's true. I guess
I
that
mean,
happens after this, doesn't it?
yeah, it happens after, but I mean, like, you could have done something like that. Like, you could have set him up there.
Yeah, the only
With
frustrating thing for me about not having Hulk and Thor is just we're saving them for a movie I really don't like.
Yeah, and I also think it's just a matter of they kind of break the team thing. Like,
Yeah.
they are too powerful for either team. And I mean, I guess you could say, like, Hulk would be on Cap's side. I guess maybe you can finagle it that Thor is on Iron Man's side, and that's how you balance it. But at the same time, like, I've always been glad that they weren't here.
I also feel like it makes it uh, look even less like an Avengers movie if you don't have all six of the originals. I think
Mhm.
it's good to be missing at least a couple of them.
When you're missing two of, like, the big ones.
Yeah, and you don't even have Hawkeye through a lot of the movie. So like at the
Mhm.
start, you've only got three of the originals, and then of course you got some of the new ones. You got Vision, Scarlet Witch, and stuff, and they are full-fledged Avengers at that point. But
Hmm. Yeah, but they probably still only have like maybe 10 minutes of screen time each. Like it's not like they're, taking over.
I thought you were gonna say like, but they're still not as important. They probably have like smaller rooms in the compound and like.
That's true. We don't see Vision's room, and he's a robot.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. What'd you say?
Oh no, I just said we never see Vision's room, and he's a robot. He may not have a.
He may just not even have a room. Yeah.
No, they mentioned that is a joke in Homecoming. He does have a room, but we don't see it, so I'm gonna say he doesn't.
It's a joke in Homecoming? Oh,
Yeah,
that's true. I forgot
where
about
they're
that.
like, you get to be in the room next to Visions. He's not big on doors, but I'll just say that he gets Wanda's room now that she's gone.
I can't believe you remember that. That's amazing. Okay, let's go ahead and go to our ratings.
Yeah.
It's time to wrap this up, shall we? Austin, where do you land on it, sir?
I'm going to give this movie a superhero. I think it's really good. I also agree that it's not as good as Winter Soldier, but at the same time, they're not too far off for me. They're both just really solidly made movies. And we didn't really mention this at all, but I also think both these films also have just like an increased I don't know, just like working of like the powers and like in terms of like action for like how do we make these characters move. Like I'll talk about that more when we get to Winter Soldier, because that's really like the point where Captain America becomes cool in the MCU.
Yeah.
But like I think that's something that the Russos like really strived with at this point, and it's probably like to some degree that the John Wick guys worked on. I'm pretty sure they worked on this one too, but I could be wrong. Yeah, and I think it just does a really good job balancing its characters. Like Vision and Wanda, like we mentioned, have such little screen time, but every bit that they get, I think, is really solid and like helps push them forward. And you get like just enough for you to really understand what they're going through in their story. This is also my favorite MCU Black Panther, like by far. He's like the biggest highlight for me in this movie. He's amazing. I think they do such a great job of making him like kind of terrifying, and his goal of getting Winter Soldier, but also just I love his redemption of seeing how Cap and Iron Man have like really broken down, and that like kind of taking him out of going down the same path as the two of them, and realizing just kind of how far everyone's fallen during the course of this movie. And I love Zemo. He should have worn his mask.
I'm really surprised you didn't go all the way to Legend with this.
I contemplated it. I could see it either way. I don't know. I could go either way on it.
Because I try not to grade on a curve too much. I do find myself going, how much MCU would go to Legend if I didn't call this a Legend. Now, I'm not actually wrestling with this one. This one is just a straight up Legend for me. Because I probably would have put it there a week ago, and I just had the best viewing I've ever had of it. So, like, there was nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's great.
there were at least 2 or 3 things I used to take issue with that are somewhat or totally like fixed for me with this last viewing I had. So I feel like I have to go there with it. And I can be superficial and even just say for like entertainment value, if nothing else. Like this is one of the couple of event movies that gave me the feeling I had with Avengers again in bringing like a comic book like team event feel to the big screen, and I didn't think you could do that after Avengers, and Civil War was the next one that did that. And Infinity War also managed that. That's not me saying it will definitely get a Legend. I don't know yet, but it also gave me that. But those are the only 3 that did.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's fair. I definitely had that in the theater, and it was funny because a lot of it was stuff I expected to happen. Where
Sure.
I'm like, okay, 100% we're gonna get Giant Man in this film and that big action scene. And then when it happened, I went to see it for the first time with my uncle, and we argued about it for like months leading up to that point. And I turned to him in the theater, and I was like, "See, I told you so. Of course they were gonna do Giant Man." Um, no, I
That's really funny.
100% had that, and I think it also helps that it's a better story than either of the first two Avengers movies. So like you're also
Yeah.
having like you can dig a little deeper while having that I'm excited to see these characters come together thing.
Well, and they've taken Tony and Steve to simultaneously like a real natural place for their arc, and also a surprising place in putting them like so at odds by the end and in breaking up the team the way they
Mhm.
do. Like that wasn't a given, obviously, because Marvel tried to get them to not do that.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
And so I guess I also just admire the risk taking in it, at least, um, storytelling wise.
Hmm. No, for sure. Like I said, I mean, you could definitely talk me into going into a legend, but watching it, I was like, I feel like my gut reaction is just superhero, but definitely on the like upper echelon of that.
I also want to note that just because I think it's funny, because I'd completely forgotten about this, that Thor is left out of this movie entirely, and in the comic, Thor is dead and he's a clone.
You get Clone Thor, yeah, and he kills Bill Foster.
Yeah, who apparently was supposed to be in Thunderbolts, and they kicked him out, which sucks. I was looking for him in that movie. I was really sad when that didn't happen.
He should have popped up like Henry Winkler in Black Adam, where Ghost just like Skype calls him for one scene.
No, he was
Uh,
supposed to actually finally get to be Goliath.
no, I mean that makes sense. Like one of the Thunderbolts in the comics is a version of Goliath, so like I can see
Yeah.
why they probably thought that initially. But oh well.
Well, and also just because Ghost is there. It's weird he's never even mentioned. Like,
Mm.
he doesn't come up at all.
It's been like 10 years like since that movie for her.
It
I don't know what her status quo
it
is.
feels like it, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Sorry everybody. I forgot to set this up so that we can do ratings here.
Well, I completely forgot. Like while you were
Or
talking, I added it
rankings
to
rather.
mine. And I feel like I've been bad for that for like the last few, but I got it in.
That's okay. I don't know why anybody should expect professionalism at this point.
I know, right? In my defense, it's been a couple weeks. I forgot what we do here.
Why can't I get this to show up? Sorry everybody. If I can't show this, we'll just talk about it. It's fine. Um, yeah, this just isn't popping up for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, well, alas, I think this
We've been
time.
foiled again.
Sorry, now I can't even get back to the. There we go. Um, 2 a.m. is late. Okay, Austin, where are you throwing this on our list and or on your letterbox list, and just tell us kind
Uh,
of what's around it.
yeah, so I have it at number 10. So it's just above X2 and just under the Toxic Avenger.
You put this under
Yeah,
Toxic
I mean,
Avenger.
yeah,
You
it's
are
the
so
Toxic Avenger,
you
dude.
are so fired.
Hey, I had the right opinion about Bucky from the start, so I put this under Toxic Avenger.
Look, I appreciate having you here for these 41 shows, but this is where we must part ways, I think.
You're gonna throw the shield down?
That's it, man. I'm going to make you think I'm going to put it in your face, but I'm just going to stab you in the heart with it.
Oh no.
That sounded more violent than it was intended.
I mean, it definitely is way more violent when you just say it like that.
Rumsky says we're both fired for putting X2 that high. I'm not gonna apologize for my love for X2.
I mean, I can kind of see that. I don't know. I am looking at my ranking and being like, I should maybe change some of these. I'd maybe drop X2 down like 1 or 2, but
I've got some things to maybe move around myself. I put this. I'm waffling with this a little bit. I probably got it a little high. But then
I mean, I had a hard time placing it.
But then I'm looking at what's around it, and I'm like, I don't know if it is too high. So I've got it at 4. I have it.
Okay.
I have it.
Oh, yeah, and I can actually pull up your list.
I have it right above Mask of Zorro, and right under Superman the movie. Because as good as Zorro is, I think I like this movie better.
I mean, that's fair.
Like they're
if I have X2 too high, you have X2 way too high.
Yeah, because I've got it at number 2 still. I've got it over Superman and over this. Some of that's just soft spot and what resonates with you and all that. I base this as much on analysis as I can, but I mean, there's some subjectiveness to it. There's no way around. It's kind of hard to compare something like Civil War to Mask of Zorro because I actually don't know which of those is the better movie, but I think they're both tighter and have fewer issues than Days of Future Past. As much as I love that, so I had to put them.
I mean, I would say Mask of Zorro is definitely the better movie over the two, but then it becomes like an apples and oranges thing where it's like. Like I'm more into Marvel, like let's say, than I am Zorro. So like I will lean towards Civil War, but like I think just if you were to place both of those movies side by side and say which is the better made film, like I do think it is absolutely Mask of Zorro. But yeah, I mean I can't really question like putting one over the other.
Yeah, like. Is that the better script between them? It's definitely visually the best between them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Apples and oranges, tomato, potato, as they say.
Well, anyway, I think that does it for Captain America: Civil War. Unless there's anything else you want to absolutely make sure that we throw in, because I know we're gonna end here and we're both gonna go. God, how did we not talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about. Like, I feel like we didn't talk much about Black Panther either, but like that's okay. We did get a lot done at the same time.
I hope we did, because I feel like that shot by way too fast. Okay, so as I alluded to earlier, as I kind of teased at the beginning, next time we're doing a Batman movie, and we're gonna try to get at least 2 of those done this month. And we did a poll on Patreon for animated Batman movies, and the winner, not surprisingly, I kind of felt bad about putting this on my list because it knocked both of Austin's off pretty quick, but I've been kind of having the anchoring to go back to this, so I couldn't help myself. So the winner is... God, I'm tired, Austin.
We may never know.
we're just not gonna know. No, the winner is Under the Red Hood. And if I can find the time, I'm gonna try to go and at least skim the comics for that one too, because I've never read that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Or at least I've never read much of it.
I mean, it's kind of just a lesser version of that movie, from what I remember.
That's what I've always heard, but... And the big thing I know is they don't... Winnick doesn't resurrect Jason Todd via Lazarus Pit, which is just the obvious way to go. And so...
No, it's the Superboy punch.
Yeah, I mean, as great as that movie is, I'm almost glad that it got made, even if it wasn't that good, just to do that. Like, it just seems wrong that if there was never a version where that's the way he's brought back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, did I tell you about the weird Thunderbolts Bucky thing? When I was reading the Kurt Busiek run? So there's a point where this like masked character comes up and he kills Zemo. And like I said, in the comics, Zemo is the one that kills Bucky. And this is 97, or I guess probably at this point it's like 2000, maybe 99. But Bucky's, still non-existent at this point. And the masked character has like a very like visceral reaction to seeing Bucky's costume. And they're like, oh man, like, could this be Bucky? Like, he's back as some sort of like masked assassin. And obviously, like, that's not what it is. It ends up being the Bucky to like the 50s Cap, because in the comics, Bucky is like Robin, like that's a mantle.
Right.
And but he is also a mind controlled assassin. And it's very strange.
Weird.
I was like, oh, this is Winter Soldier before Winter Soldier. That's fascinating.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I had no idea. It's very bizarre. But anyways.
But anyway, so...
and...
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought you were trying to end. The plot, like, with the people that he's working for is that they have this disease that they've programmed so that it can kill, like, the specific people they want it to, and they're going to, like, release it out to kill potential terror people. So it's also just the plot of the Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But sorry, you're trying to end.
No, that's all right. So Under the Red Hood for next time. We'll do another Batman movie after that, and I've got a pretty good idea about what that's going to be, but I won't reveal it quite yet. And then we might have time for another one this month, but I think it's just going to be those two. And we might end the month with some kind of watch party for other Batman stuff. On a Friday that I have to do a writers meeting. But anyway, so that's the month for Rewind. Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for being here. Once again, if you want to be a $10 Patreon producer, patreon.com/geekvolution gives you the option to help us pick movies for Rewind and hang out with us on Discord and get your name read at the end of every episode. I'm going to do that right now, so thanks to all the patrons, and thanks to everybody that showed up and hung out with us tonight, and really appreciate all the super chatters. Thank you guys so much for your contributions to the channel, and I had so much fun learning about the unmade 2004 BVS script from Dan Schneider. Thanks a lot for that. And and I was gonna read some other comments from earlier, Austin, but God, it's late. And we're past Civil War. So anyway, thank you guys for super chats and that let us get some comments out. But we had so much to talk about, I wasn't able to look at the chat as much. Anyway, you guys are great. Patreon producers, I'm gonna read them right now. Thanks to Darren Dooley, Jesse Surtees, Chewbacca's Lover, Dr. Hello, Elliot Slater, Goofster123, Joe Turner, Joe Gira, Super Billy, Vic Apocalypse, Victor, Abic Stark, Adam March, Checkers the Inventor, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Invisipig, Kareem Roberts, Kate Blaze, Matt Bat68, Matthew Brody, and Michael Martin. Thank you guys for once again sticking with us and contributing to the channel and helping us keep this crazy train moving right along. So 41 Super Rewind commentaries now. We're averaging 20 a year, Austin. We got to do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, we got to try a little harder.
Well, anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
God bless America, God bless Iron Man, and God bless Tony Stark.
Bye, guys.